Oh man, I'm so glad to be back in LA.
Dude, why you were home. I brought you
was my home.
Well, Oklahoma/Arkansas. We were on the border of Oklahoma.
We flew into Arkansas, then drove 45 minutes into Oklahoma. So we're like right on the border.
You fly into Lafayette, and when you fly in there, you don't see really any construction. It's
I'm not gonna lie.
Fields.
We're kind of hating on it a little bit. We're like, oh boy, it's about to be a long weekend.
Yeah.
And then we drove through the country. I mean, nothing.
A lot of roadkill. Armadillos.
Poor armadillos. A couple
possum
upside
armadillo.
down.
Yep. Got
Faces
some raccoons.
are ran over. Raccoons.
You got some,
I was like, we're screwed.
Yeah.
And we pulled up to this giant casino, and literally it's like
Cherokee Nation.
Town. Boom, Cherokee Nation.
Yeah, we were about 40 minutes away from the capital of Cherokee Nation, which is, I can't remember the town's name.
I just like the air. The air was fresh.
It's the strangest thing. You got up and you go, I like the air. You kept saying the air's fresh. I was like, well, it smells like cut grass.
Oh,
yeah.
I love that. It's my favorite thing in the world.
I like cut
So
grass.
then I was like, you know what? I got a good feeling, maybe. But then we asked the guy, we're like, what's there to do? He's like, I don't know, man. There ain't much to do around here. And we're like, well, what if we want to go in town? He's like, there ain't nothing there for you. Like, we were told there's good coffee. Not up there. Well, can you take us? Nah, there's one taxi in town. Gives us
and I called the guy.
A business card.
I called the guy.
Of the one taxi driver in town.
Tony Taxi.
He was about 100 years old.
His name is Tony Taxi.
Cowboy hat, business card. Him, arms folded, just said, call me.
Yep.
You called him.
I called him.
He didn't answer.
No, I did. He goes,
he
well,
did?
I got a client right now, so for me to get down there, it's going to take a long time. I said, how long? He goes, it'll be a little while. I was like, can you give me a specific time? Never mind.
So then our boy Stuart, who basically runs that casino, great guy, fan of the show.
Oh,
Shout out
great.
to Stuart and his dime piece wife.
Oh,
who we had
beautiful.
dinner with twice.
Stuart's wife.
Stuart,
Jerry, Big Jerry.
Yep. So then they took us down to the little town there, and it was like Pleasantville in that
Dude,
bitch. It was amazing.
Hey, how about this? Middle of nowhere. Go down to this adorable little town, basically 2 long streets. And some of the best coffee we've
Poor
ever had.
John's? Is it
Poor John's? Poor John's. Maybe some of the best coffee, period.
You could put that right on Abbott Kinney, and I bet it would beat Intelligentsia.
I hold Poor John's up against any coffee shop I've been
Top
to.
3 all time.
Caramel tasting cappuccino.
Oh.
And adorable.
And just a real cute setup.
Oh, if they had cheeks, I'd pinch those fucking cheeks.
Vinyl records, like there's all this drawing on the wall. I drew up there.
It's weird when you go into a town and as a man you go, this is a cute town. When you use the word cute, when it brings you into that sort of homey, cozy feeling, it had a river running through it.
Have you ever? There's like that movie Pleasantville. Literally, everyone's white, and then it was just.
Well, not everybody's white. There's a lot of Native Americans.
Native Americans, white people. And
a lot of people have.
Everyone's so friendly.
Very friendly, but not very friendly, wonderful people. Probably not the place you would go if you wanted to find the fittest people in the world.
I would say there wasn't a gym. I don't know if I had to guess in 100 square miles.
Yeah, there was some people like their fried bread.
Straight up fried banana bread. The lady was all. I was like, man, I'm on this freaking diet. Good luck out there. I'm like, Kate, is there sugar in the almond milk? She said, say what? Is there sugar in the almond milk? I don't know, son, but you want some fried banana bread?
The keto
kid,
the keto kid, literally, you kept making.
How strict was I?
You were so strict, it was bugging me. I go, let's get some jerky. He goes, no, that's Crave. I go, yeah, it's called Crave jerky. It's the best. He goes, got some sugar in it. I go, they might have dusted a little sugar in the lime.
Nah.
Nope, can't do it. Shook his head. Kept making a face like, you kept going,
I wish.
Like you made the face that you do when you look at my hair. When you're looking down at my hair.
Because it's a bummer.
Your mouth gets tight.
It's a bummer.
Like when you go to greet somebody at a funeral. And they've lost a loved one, and you go, I'm very sorry. And your mouth gets tight, and your eyebrows kind of close in. That's what Brennan does. That's what you did when you looked at my hair and when I bought that chocolate chip cookie, and you had to smell it.
Well, the other thing is when we check in, they're like, these are fresh baked cookies from the bakery down below. I was like, oh.
And they were delicious. Good food, by the way. Oh, by the way, in that little town, there's a place called 28 Springs. In that little town, in the middle of nowhere, some of the best that was some of the best Canadian walleye.
I agree, man.
Unbelievable.
Everything.
Food.
It was
Great
a good
food,
experience. I gotta be honest, we were kind of hating on it, and even the fans were like, "Why are you gonna go up there? Why don't you come to real Oklahoma City or Arkansas City?" I don't know, man. We don't book the venue; someone else does.
And I got to say it was
glorious.
Yeah, a lot of Cherokee. We met a lot of people with Cherokee blood. Brennan looked far more Cherokee than anybody I met there. With the exception maybe of Jerry, who drove us around.
Even him.
But even Jerry.
Everyone thought I was an Indian.
Yeah. You couldn't look more. That's the first thing I said when we got on stage. I go, I brought Brendan home. He looks more Cherokee than anybody in this audience.
Dude, the live show, I was a little worried. You never know, man, because it was a live show, which, I'm not tuning our own horn, but we're the only ones ever to sell that place out.
Only ones ever.
They've had a lot of big comedians, a lot of shows there. We're the only ones ever to sell that place out.
Yeah, it was a good
feeling. So you never know what you're going to get there. The crowd was awesome, man. People were so cool. People came from all over. The one dude in the front row was so wasted. Literally right. I think it's right when you came up, or was I on doing my set?
I was up for about 2 minutes.
You were up for 2 minutes. We just see, boom, homeboy just so drunk, passes out in the front, hits his head.
Yeah.
They get him back up, and then I'm like, man, they should probably get him out of here. But he's on that lean. He was on that Firing the Kid lean.
Yeah.
He kept going rocking back and forth. I was like, all right, as long as he's rocking, we're cool. So then during fan questions, I'm like, oh, dear God, just sit there, man. Don't be a drunk. He raised his hand. I think you were like, what's up, man?
Yeah.
For sure, don't do that. And he goes, you Rayburn Horse.
Yeah.
You home Rayburn Horse. I was like, maybe sit this round out, my man.
More oxygen to the brain, sir.
Yeah, so then we keep going. We left to eat. Then we come back to take pictures and watch the UFC with everyone. Homeboy, I guess, got up. We weren't there.
We tried to chase us out.
Boom! Hits his chin right on the stage. Busted up everywhere.
Yeah, he took a spill. Alcohol is an American pastime.
He might have been on some other shit, though.
Probably.
It looked like because he might have had some of that fried Molly bread.
Yeah, because he looked normal. Like, sort of, he was sitting there, and then he couldn't speak. You know what I mean? It was a weird drunk. It was
as soon as he sat down, I knew something was up because he had a flat top. I've seen one of those in forever.
Yeah.
He had a straight flat top. I was like, well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And then he was rocking back and forth. I was like, this could be weird.
Yep.
And then we fell down. I made a joke. Some people laughed.
What'd you say?
I forget.
Yeah.
Something about him falling.
Yeah, because the two people next to him said, we don't know him.
Yeah.
That's what they said to me. But anyway, Oklahoma/Arkansas, wherever we were. You never know when you're going to find a little gem of a city.
Pleasantville, man.
Good people.
But this week, we are back on the road, B. We are just a couple 1-2 travelers, my man.
We got Minneapolis. We got Madison, Wisconsin. We got Chicago.
I'm excited for Madison, Wisconsin. I've never been there, and I heard that town gets crunk.
It gets crunk.
And there's cheese.
It's an amazing... First of all...
I can have cheese on the keto.
I'll make a call right now.
I can have cheese on the keto. The keto kids come to Wisconsin.
So the keto kid,
I need you to get your cheese ready.
So you're still the keto kid when we go to Wisconsin and Chicago?
Oh, I'm full keto kid in Wisconsin.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Post that picture on Instagram. Not mad at the body.
You know what?
I can see your obliques for the first time.
Yeah, I know. I look almost better now than I did fighting. But, Minneapolis, Madison, Wisconsin. So that's shit. Minneapolis is on Thursday. Madison, Wisconsin on Friday. And then Chicago, Vic Theater. That's a big one. That thing's almost sold out. Get tickets right now. I know they've released more. There's VIP tickets, I think, left still at all the venues. So Chicago, Minneapolis, Madison, Chicago. That's Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Tweet us where we can get good coffee in Minneapolis and Madison. I know Chicago will have it.
Yeah,
coffee's important for us.
But yeah, I posted that picture. I told you I was nervous to do it. We're on the plane. I got Wi-Fi. I'm like, dude, I took a picture to see how the diet's working to send, to people. And I was like, man, I'm thinking about posting because everyone keeps asking how it's going, blah, blah. And I'm never that guy to post.
Well, you don't even work out on a tank top.
No. I'm like, well, it depends.
Pretty, yeah.
But I was like, I feel like a tool posting it. But I figured it'd help some people. You see the comments, man. It was good.
Dude, you've been working hard. If you have a body like that, and
if
it works, it works.
Yeah. For me, it was like,
it wasn't like you were like, hey, look at me, everybody.
No, not at all. It was more just like, I've been doing the diet. Yeah, I feel like it's working.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, they reached out to me individually, obviously in DM or personal messages. So
yeah,
I think it's helping.
A lot of guys reaching out to you?
Almost all guys.
Yeah.
That's usually what happens.
Anybody saying you're fucking delicious?
Delicious, and I don't get why you don't take your pants off. I'm like, you know what, man? Let's just focus on the keto. Let's just focus on the keto.
Somebody wants to see the keto kids piece.
They do, man. And there's a ton of keto information out there. Rogan did a whole podcast on it. There's a keto.
We're talking about the ketogenic diet here.
There's a keto podcast you can look up. Yeah. There's all sorts of stuff, man. It's really easy to stick to.
Well, you can eat a lot of vegetables on it, right?
Yeah, fuck vegetables. That'd be miserable. You can eat a lot of steak, bacon, guacamole,
cheese.
Also the right almond milk, cappuccinos. dairy.
No sugar.
No sugars.
Body wants
Sugar's
to
the
run on
big
fat.
one. Sugar and carbs is the big one.
Yeah.
You avoid all that, you're set, man.
I feel like I would become a skeleton.
I don't think it's for you. We got a big show today with Frank Mir coming.
Got big Frank
One
Mir.
of the legends of the sport, Frank the Tank, the Mir.
Yeah. Give me some people he's fought. Let's go through the list of people he's actually.
Name a heavyweight, Brian. Do you really want to do this?
Daniel Cormier, back in the day.
Daniel Cormier back in the day? Not really. That was last year.
I know.
Big Nog.
It was a little long.
Brock Lesnar.
It's crazy.
I mean, you literally can name anyone in the heavyweight division. He's been the longest running heavyweight.
Yeah.
We don't need to go through. I mean, everyone knows he's a legend.
Everybody.
He's a legend. First guy to submit Nogueira. First guy to knock out Nogueira.
Jesus.
Submitted Brock Lesnar. I mean, his fight against Brock Lesnar.
Did he ever fight Verdum?
No, that fight never came to Verdum. When they were fighting, Frank was on the rise.
Yeah.
Verdum was on the decline.
Yep.
And then Verdum got cut. Frank was still fighting.
God, Verdum got
and then
cut.
Verdum, went to Pride, did all his things, came back to the UFC.
Right.
And then Verdum was on the down. Then Frank was on the down. Verdum was on the up. So they've never crossed paths. That's a good fight, though.
Yeah. Be a great fight.
I'd love to just see them compete in EBI. I'd love to see Josh Barnett versus Frank in EBI.
Frank's high-level jiu-jitsu.
He's the best submission artist of all time. Most submissions.
Heavyweight.
Yes. I think period. I think he has the most submission wins in the UFC.
I'll look it up, but I wouldn't at all be surprised.
Yeah, top 3 at least.
Talk about a guy snapped Tim Sylvia's arm like a twig.
To win the title. Yeah, and submit Brock Lesnar and broke Big Nog. And what's interesting to me, I want to see what state of mind he's in. Because we were on his podcast. He was at our live show in Vegas. And there, when we talked to him, he's like, I'm going to fight for 6 more years, blah, blah, blah. But he was on a streak, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to ask him.
I mean, he lost that decision or lost. He has a terrible, boring fight. I know how that goes. But then he fought. He told us, yeah, I'm fighting Mark Hunt next. I was like, that's interesting.
Yeah.
The issue I had was, remember how in love he was with boxing. I went,
Right.
dude, fuck that noise.
I remember that.
Just fucking.
You've had some good insights. We'll get into Jon Jones and your point of view on that.
Yeah, you want to wait for Frank on that?
I
That's
think we'll
driving
wait
me
for him.
nuts.
Yeah.
That's driving me nuts. We watched the fight with the fans, and usually that's a big no-no for me, man. There's nothing more stressful.
But they were all
Oklahoma was great.
They were great.
I honestly, I think it depends where you're at. Vegas is a beast.
Yeah.
Vegas, I don't think you could pay me enough to do that.
Right.
Certain parts of California can't pay me enough to do that. Oklahoma, everyone was so nice.
I think it's because
and they were also they're really polite.
Yeah.
And they like in between rounds they'd come up and
I
it was
think
great.
that's Southern manners,
That's
Southern
Southern
manners,
charm?
Southern hospitality.
They're not considered Southern though. They're
They
the
consider
Midwest.
no. Don't tell anybody from Arkansas or even Oklahoma that they are Midwest. They'll tell you
I'm here
they're
just
Southern.
geographically. You're not Southern. You'd be the Midwest.
They're more Southern than they are Midwest.
Midwest
but
South.
It depends on where in Oklahoma, where in Arkansas.
To me,
I would
South
imagine.
is Georgia, Florida,
Tennessee,
New Orleans,
Mississippi.
The South.
You talk to somebody from Arkansas, Oklahoma. I believe
They
that
think they're South?
most of them are going to tell you that they're Southerners.
That's interesting.
And by the way, you get a lot of guys talking like this. I remember
A lot of guys talking like that.
Well, we had an experience with an alligator snapping turtle, and I've since done some research.
Well, there's a little fair, right? So they'll set it up here, B. So we went into town. There's a little fair going on, like town fair, and there's funnel cakes, all that shit. I ate
smoked turkey legs.
But then there was this big aquarium full of all these animals.
Giant aquarium that
and
they
there was a large
drive around.
man with an alligator.
It was basically think of a small semi,
Yeah.
but it was an aquarium. I was thinking about that. That guy drives that on the road. If that thing got
those
hit
fish
by
just
another
bump
car,
around?
I guess so. If that thing got hit by a car, there are fish all over that highway, and turtles.
I don't think.
And he had an alligator snapping turtle in there, and they basically grow a pound a year. This thing was 35 pounds.
And that's how you can tell how old they are.
They get up to 110, 120. He's heard of 200-pound alligator snapping turtles. I'll tell you what, this thing, the minute you pick it up, it opens its mouth as wide as it gets. It can breathe through a hole in its tongue. And good luck.
He was a little too into turtles and alligators.
Frank Mir, ladies and gentlemen. Frank
the
Mir.
Tank.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have the great, the handsome, the half Cuban.
The legend. I call him the legend.
You do call him
I call him the legend.
Frank Mir.
I call him the legend. I can't believe you came to L.A. unstrapped. The hell's wrong
By the way,
with you?
just real quick, guys. He's not armed.
Now's the time to get
I
them.
know.
This will come out tomorrow, and you already be back home with 20 guns attacked.
Yeah, I'll get home quickly.
Do you feel a little naked right now?
I do. I don't like that. That's one thing about my wife's always talked about maybe moving back because she's from Sacramento.
Right.
Moving up to California, and I'm like, oh, I can't carry a gun.
Heaven forbid you have to use your hands and jiu-jitsu skills.
Yeah, Frank, you'd be lost.
Well, I mean, hey, if everybody was just going to square up and fight me like, kung fu style, that'd be okay. But,
not here,
it
my
seems
man.
like every time I look in the news, people aren't getting mugged, fisticuffs. It's usually
That's a legit
a
point.
knife. People pull out guns, and so.
All right, here's
it's
a-
like
here's
paper,
a-
rock, scissors, knife,
That's a legit point.
you need a gun.
Here's the scenario. Take a look at me. You've taken me in, and I know you've admired my athleticism. You got a 170-pound guy, regular guy. If you're hiking, you're just hiking. You're minding your own business. You're lost in your thoughts. How many guys my size, realistically, you think you could beat up just hand to hand?
If they didn't grab rocks and sticks and
No
stuff.
rocks or sticks.
Just normal.
No rocks or
Yeah,
sticks.
I'd probably do okay with 2,
Oh, Frank.
I think more.
Handle
I
4
think
to
more.
5.
Yeah. If you're really mad, I don't
Yeah,
see.
I don't know, just
Because you're putting the first couple guys to sleep.
I'm going to get Frank out of this one. No one gives a fuck. And we don't think like that.
I do.
That's so
I do.
weird.
All of us guys
But
go.
you know what? For a long time, I wouldn't actually go to our we have Red Rock, and it's a national park
Yeah,
and stuff.
that's nice.
And for the longest time, even if you have a concealed weapons permit, you couldn't carry your weapon in there. And I'm like, I'm not going out in the middle of nowhere.
Not Frank Mir.
I kind of agree with you on all this.
Yeah, I mean, because they're like, well, the police are there to protect you. I'm like, yeah, but if I run into just a couple people partying the night before, drunk, they see me and my wife and kids, and all of a sudden,
Harassing you.
they want to, they say something. My wife is going to say something back.
Yep.
And now I'm in a situation where, it's like, so then actually, it's funny because Obama, people who are, pro-gun are like, oh, he's going to take our guns away. He actually signed in a few things that, actually helped. And one of them was that I can now carry my weapon into a state park.
Oh, dang, that's cool.
So it makes, now when you guys see me up in Mount Charleston,
What's up? Yeah.
Hey, dude.
Watch your P's and Q's.
Let me tell you something. I was telling him I made the mistake and I went down that rabbit hole, and he did the same thing with tigers. I'm minding my own business on YouTube, and I see a little thing, suggestions for you, and it's a compilation of the worst bear attacks on humans. Had to click on it. Now here's the thing about bears: they start eating you before you die.
Oh, yeah.
And they'll eat you.
It's
ass
like
first.
Yellowstone, though, right? They're having issues.
Wherever.
Yellowstone.
I'm not going anywhere near
so
any of those
powerful
areas
and
without
strong,
a gun.
just unreal, like not even relatable to a human.
No.
I seen one time a video where they put peanut butter under a 700-pound rock, and this bear grabbed it, lifted it up, and it was looking like you and I going up and cracking a beer open. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like,
another level.
I'm all,
That's
dude, there's
crazy.
nothing you can do. Like, come
No.
on,
No. Just a 700-pound rock.
Yeah, just no problem. Just one arm rowing it. I'm
Well,
like,
Rogan posted on his Instagram a baby bear, a bear cub, just hand. Have you seen that?
Oh, with the dog.
Just
The
beating
dog's
shit
like
out of
on
a-
his ear.
just
and the
beating the
little
shit out of a
cub goes
giant-
nuts and
giant
just
dog.
Man handles
Just-
this giant bit.
putting it on its
dog,
back
yeah.
and rolling it around. Yeah.
well, and just animals are one thing, but people, man, at least an animal has behavioral,
Yeah, you can predict.
Animal.
You know,
Well,
it's
animal,
like,
if you don't
if it's
fuck with them,
hungry,
they're not gonna fuck
if
with
I'm
you.
not messing with it, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? You know what I mean? Like, the typically, usually if someone gets attacked by a bear, an animal, you could probably run through a list and go, yeah, you screwed up here, here, and here. You
Yeah.
could have avoided this. You're kind of being a dumbass,
People.
People, man,
Crazy.
You completely, how many times people just, I could be doing everything right.
I agree, man.
And just people just inherently are more,
Well, look at that football
have
player,
evil
Will
characters.
Smith in New Orleans.
Yeah.
A guy, obviously there's some backstory to it, but a guy rear-ended him. He gets out to confront him. The guy just shoots him right in the chest.
Yeah.
Dead.
But
Kind of police situation.
you fought because you're I always think of you as an athlete who saw the challenge of fighting. It was a natural segue from football, and you always called yourself an athlete
Yeah.
that competes. And Frank, you kind of feel to me, you've always felt to me more like as a great athlete as you are, more in the sort of the realm of what I would call a fighter, just a guy who likes to fight.
But if you look at Frank's background, and we can go over it so you don't have to, Frank, but so your dad started you in wrestling, right? Your dad had a background in wrestling?
Well, no, my dad actually a background in karate, Kempo
Karate.
karate. When he came over from Cuba, he started, his parents signed him up karate classes. And then by the time I was around, him and my mom actually met at a karate school, So actually they met, at the McDonald's together there in Vegas, working. And then that was like their, hey, we're dating, let's go do something. So they started doing martial arts together. So by the time I came around, my dad owned a gym, so I was a little brat that got brought in, you know, and stuck.
Oh, wow.
But you were also a good athlete in high school. Football, right?
Played football,
track.
did
And
track.
you also wrestled.
Yeah, wrestled. Yeah, I wrestled for 2 years. Was a state champion at that, and so you know, an affinity for athleticism. But to the point you're saying, yeah, I've always done it because I wanted as many situations to put myself. You know, we know how that is. When you get into a scary situation, your brain freezes and locks up. But I've noticed that every time I've done it, I've gotten a little bit better at it.
Yeah.
So fighting to me was just a way of, you know, training in the cage. It's like, hey man, it turned out awesome that I got paid to do it, you know, but it was still a way of preparing me for if a situation arose and I had to get into a fight, you know, with somebody outside, you know, like, okay, if I get in an altercation and just baseline primal, just, you know, what makes it to where I can keep what I think about, and if I'm doing the right thing and I want to continue doing the right thing, someone says, no, I'm going to come in and change the course of your life. How do I change that? And so, you know, you have guys that train martial arts, and especially in the traditional martial arts world, you had guys that's like, well, you know, I could do this, this, and this, you know. I'm like, yeah, but you never do it against a guy who you're scared, nervous, or caught unprepared.
Different
like,
game,
so
man.
you're all of a sudden going to tell me that, you know, I mean, we don't live in a country where all of us are getting into street brawls every day. You know?
Be nice.
Yeah, you know. So it's like, really, like, how many altercations have you been in? You're all of a sudden, you're going to flip the switch and turn it on. You know, that's an unrealistic thought. You know.
Well, that's why with before, when they used to train cops, a lot of times if they talk about inoculating yourself to stress the combat. So a lot of cops would get into a firefight, and they'd never been in a firefight, and all of a sudden their friend gets shot, and the noise is so loud, and they go into panic mode.
Yeah, get tunnel vision, lock up.
Right,
Yeah.
and so they wouldn't be able to fire their gun. A lot of cops got shot because they couldn't fire their gun. Or I'll do you one even better. When they'd be on a firing range, they'd be shooting, and you would pick up your shells as you were shooting, so that the next guy, before you didn't have to deal with all your shells.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Problem was, they'd get in firefights.
Follow the same pattern.
Same pattern.
Damn.
They'd find agents that were dead with their pockets full of shells because they were stopping to pick up their shells. Or when they do disarming somebody, taking the gun out of your hand. When you train it, you do it with your buddy. You pull it out of your hand. You give it back to your buddy.
Yeah.
Guy did that in a store. He pulled it out, gave it back to the guy.
Come on,
instinctually,
bro. Yeah.
and his partner had to shoot the guy.
Frank, but do you feel? I feel
think-
like UFC is one of the only sports where no matter how hard you train inside your individual gym, you can't duplicate that live feeling. Like in football, we can do ones versus ones, high level. Let's say you're at Oklahoma, you go ones versus ones, and you're gonna get same speed, similar situation.
Yeah, but it's still,
identical.
I think, almost identical. And I think we can make sparring too almost identical. But I think too, even that, like, there's certain, like, you know, just like I'm sure your football background, you know, way more, you know, in depth than mine. But you always had those guys that in practice look like superstars.
For sure.
No, I mean the practice could be the game. You could have a scrimmage and they look like, man, you know, damn, dude, you know, is your mom ready for a new house? You know, like, wow. And then all of a sudden game time comes on. It's like, what happened to the guy that we saw at practice? You know, and that is just because the brain enters that different mode, and again, it's just exposure therapy. That's what I look at, like what fighting is because the more times I'm exposed to a adverse situation that scares the hell out of me, and I have to operate under those parameters, then the better prepared, hopefully, I'll be for.
You're getting ready for a life or death situation,
right? Well, and as there is no you are or you're not. To me, it's percentages. You know, it's like a statistic. It's like preparing for a fight. There is no 100% I'm going to win this fight.
Yeah.
You know, there is, I'm in the 99 percentile because I've trained, I'm bigger, stronger, faster, but there is no absolutes, you know, just like life. You can be a vegan like Richard and eat right, exercise every morning, have a heart attack at 40 years of age. Statistically, probably not, but there are no guarantees. And that's a part too. I mean, you know this. That's the part that drives people insane in fighting world. That's why guys don't want to do it, because you can't guarantee the outcome, and people want that guarantee. Yeah. They want to sit there and go, well, just like you're saying, well, if I do this, this, and this, I'll be ready for a street altercation. I'm all, well, no, you'll be better prepared. Just like if you go to a shooting range and you go and take courses and you know how to operate a firearm and malfunctions and different drills and you have an understanding, do your percentages of going up in a gunfight improve? Yeah, drastically. But does that mean that there's some punk that doesn't have a clue what to do?
It's true. And when it comes to fighting, it's a little different. You know, in football, there's no guarantees. But man, if you're the New England Patriots and you're stacked and you're playing like Raiders or something, you're pretty. You know, there's really no.
Well,
there's no. You know what I'm saying? Like there's no.
Yeah, but you say that, but I've seen New England lose to Miami. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, whoa, where did that come from?
But then you do with the UFC. What's tough is, you know, you have these faces, these mega stars. I mean, you've been one of them. You got Conor, just lost. Ronda couldn't get any. We're like, damn, she's never gonna lose.
Yeah.
The fighting gods do not care.
The MMA gods don't care.
Yeah, no, and like I said, percentages, they fight over 100 times. I'm going to go ahead and say that the top level people are going to perform at a higher level and do well.
Sure.
But, again, there's that part that drives people insane, and that's why they don't compete. That's why they just sit there. It's like, well, I want to guarantee. I'm like, man, there's no. I remember I first started realizing when I was a kid, right? My dad, Metro police officer, right? And he was studying a book. And I remember it made me, at first I was crying because like, oh, my dad's going to die. He's going to be a police officer. You're scared, right? But I was reading one of the stories, and it was an officer in Vegas, like in the early 80s. And he had retired or went on to something else, and then decided to come back on the force. He'd only been there for a couple months. Marv Carey, I believe is his name. And they got into a pursuit on some guy who was high on drugs, robbed a place, gun, whatever the case. And he's a motorcycle police officer. So finally, when the patrol car pulls up, I guess the policy is that, like, well, he has a thing, a car around him. It's probably safer for him to be following the suspect. So as he's pulling back to give, away to the patrol car, this high, jacked up guy that probably never even been to a gun range puts the gun outside the window and pulls one of these, shoots. What? My dad says I showed a picture of the autopsy almost right between the eyes. I mean, like really in the forehead. You know what I mean? So, I mean, now statistically, what are the chances of that happening? 1,000,000 to 1. But guess what? 1,000,000 to 1 sometimes does occur, and you just have to accept that that's reality.
Well, this guy I know who trains pistol tactics and stuff. And I said, I want to carry a gun. He said, why? I said, I might be in the mall with my kids. Some shooter comes in, starts shooting. I want to have an answer. I want to at least know. Options. And he goes, what would you do? You think? And I said, well, I just I'd find a spot. I keep changing my position. And he was great. He goes, I know, but what happens when your kids are glued to your legs? And I went, I never fucking thought about that.
Yeah, there's a couple.
There are a couple of X factors. Or like, I always wonder like what we would say if we knew how we were going to die. Like this guy was killed by a bear, but he wasn't killed by a bear the way you'd normally think he was killed by a bear. This couple, I think it was up in Whistler. They're on their way to ski. This yuppie couple in their Lexus. They're driving, talking. They're on their honeymoon. I love you. Boom! They hit a grizzly. They just hit this giant bear. And the bear goes flying into the other lane, and this dude who had just retired on his way to fish, the bear went right through his windshield. And he was like, dude, oh man, this is awesome. Yeah. Bear! And just yeah. He just went, is that a bear? And just fucking.
And then the bear attacked him inside
the car? The bear got hit by the car so hard that it went flying into the air and went into the windshield. And, with 700 pounds.
Couple hundred pounds of bear,
It's a 700-pound bear
deers
ball.
Kill people that
you're going to die.
A bear could probably do the same.
You're going to die.
You.
The point is, watch out for flying bears.
Yeah, well, the point is to all this. You can't. Nothing's 100%.
Nothing.
But isn't that the point?
But you can make. But then that you can't have a defeatist mindset and go, well, screw it. If I can't guarantee, then why bother? It's like, well. Wouldn't you rather a 90% chance than a 5% chance?
I want to do everything I can.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and add up the percentages. You know what I mean? That's why, like, when next time you guys in Vegas, I'll take you where we go. I have a guy that has a background in shooting, and not only do we do firearms and just the basics aspect of it, we'll do stuff like, for example, because we pull, it's an outdoor range. I have my car up there. He's like, all right, so you get in the car. And we'll go from there. So I'm in the car. He goes, all right, go. So we have the target set up, and I go to get out of the car. He starts jamming the door. He goes, you can't get out of the car. What do you hit there? You go, okay, now start problem solving while you're under duress. Damn. And then we get out there a lot of doing a lot of burpees. Okay, if you can shoot right now, but let's get your heart rate over 160. Yeah. And then we're going to start shooting and see how accurate you are. And things were like he grabs the back of our belt. Obviously not everybody can afford to have moving targets. But then he's like, well, if I can't move the target, I'll move you. So how well can you keep your balance while I'm pushing you and shoving you around while you're trying to stay on task and perform malfunctions? Because we'll put dummy rounds inside the
you were telling me that you'll put dummy rounds so that you jam.
Yeah. So then all of a sudden, boom, you have a malfunction. It's like, okay, quick, go. You know what I mean? And obviously in that situation, you're only simulating a type 1 malfunction.
Do you ever hope there's a situation because you do all this training?
You hear what he said? He goes, you're simulating obviously only a type 1 malfunction.
I know. But
type 1, there are more.
Do you ever hope that something eventually goes down? Because if you die at 100 and nothing ever happened, it's like, God damn it.
That's a lot of
nothing happened.
But that's why you have to be in love with the journey, right? I like just the training and stuff, just like martial arts, rolling, training. Yes. I don't think it's funny because I have guys that go, man, I would love to go train jiu-jitsu, for example. Like, yeah, but I wouldn't want to compete. I'm like, why would you have to compete? That's only one aspect of it. You know what I mean? Like that is a tool, and I can show you the benefits behind it. I might try to eventually talk you into doing competitions, but even if you don't, jiu-jitsu itself, just rolling around on the mat with guys
100%.
and training is fun.
You get
Learning
so much
moves.
out of it, right?
Yeah, and there's benefits
You
behind
learn
it.
a lot
It
about
doesn't have to
yourself,
be like,
yeah.
that's when I think when people think, it's like, well, if you're not going to be a UFC top 3 or 4 in the world, why bother? I'm like, that's dumb. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you know, what do you mean why bother? Because it's fun to train and fight, you know?
Well,
Like,
not only
you know?
that, Frank, I always tell people, like, I'll see guys who are super, like, not physical guys. They've never even thought about punching anybody in the face or done in a combat sport or really even done a rough sport. And a lot of times I'll tell those guys, I say, you are the guy who should just get into it. Not because you're going to be tough, not because you're going to get knocked out or any of that, but it'll open up a different sort of perspective.
You'll
And
treat
it's-
people differently.
Yeah, and also it'll give you a deeper understanding of another
apprehensions
aspect
they have
of the
as
world.
far as their minds. It'll actually, what you're talking about is great in psychology, especially sometimes in our culture. People have such handicaps. You know, like how many times? I mean, I worked as a bouncer for 8 years at the Rhino, right? I seen guys that could be killers, right? Fit, could fight. But because of the way their mind is, all of a sudden they get into an altercation with the guy at the bar, they're chest bumping for 45 seconds to a minute, talking trash there, and then all of a sudden now their friends start to separate them, and then it's like, I'm like, how come, and I used to always ask, because I actually had those handicaps kind of removed from me at a very early age, because I was, like my children, I just grew up in a gym, so punching someone in the face is, well, you didn't move, and I was attacking you, and you're trying to punch me in the face.
That happened, man.
You didn't move.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, there wasn't like a malicious intent, so I didn't associate physical violence with animosity. I just like, well, it's like a game, right?
Yeah, that's what you guys
hit you,
do.
hit me,
Yeah.
move, So when I see someone goes, okay, time to fight, boom, I could snap into action and go, oh, it's time to fight, right? Where other people, most guys, you see that's what you're talking about. I understand that they have that deer in the headlights, they're locked up.
restrictors,
Yeah, and you
yeah.
see them like just
Their posturing is kind of like,
They don't know
it's
what to
like,
do.
Dude, go, and they
And
can't
go.
They can't go, and that's one thing too. When people like, when I was at the club and I'd grab so many guys and be able to incapacitate them and remove them from the situation, I would look like a stud. And they're like, some of the guys are like, man, you just can just mow through people. I'm like, oh yeah, that's because their brain has too many more clicks to go. They're like preparing to fight. I'm gonna fight. I'm gonna go.
You're
Let's
already
go.
there.
Where I'm just
They're
like,
doing
go.
a 10, 9, 8.
Yeah,
Go.
They're building up, and then
Yeah,
I
man.
see you see guys do that. Guys would have to throw out. Hey man, you need to calm down. You sit them starting to drink and sit there and pace. I'm like, all right, we got to get him. I'm like, what's happening? I'm like, he's building up his courage.
I see.
he's building up. You
He's
could
building
read
up his courage.
You know what, Frank? I think that's helped you in your UFC career because we can get into this. I wanted to get into it, but you look at Jon Jones, who had this long layoff. I think there was ring rust. Like he had that. I was thinking to myself, and go, and go, and put some combos together, and go. But with you, you might have a long layoff. Even after your motorcycle injury, there was never that type of fight where it was like, we're not like, come on, Frank, throw him. You would throw him. It might be the opponent why you weren't, just teeing off on guys.
Right.
But with Jon, this layoff, I was like, come on, man.
You said something really interesting that I think is worth talking about that I thought made so much sense because Brennan for a long time has been saying about Jon, he's watching Jon kind of create this persona because Jon has been in trouble and Jon is trying to,
Be
kind
something
of be
he's
a
not,
positive,
is what I
be a
think.
positive
100%
role
agree
model.
with you.
He's trying to be a
That's-
positive
I can't wait
role
to get
model.
Frank's insight on
Yeah,
this.
I want
100%
to
agree
get
with
your
you.
insight
Keep going,
because Brennan said because Brennan would watch and he's trying to be a positive role model and Brennan would kind of make a face and go, man, I just don't think this is good for him or his fighting. And I'd be like, what are you talking about? He goes, he's playing a character. He should just be the heel because I think if he's trying to be this much of a role model and this controlled, he's going to be that way. He might be that way in the cage. All this training, now he's starting to lift weights. He's taking it quote unquote seriously. That may not be what Jon Jones
No drugs.
needs.
That wildcat persona. Like a lot of guys need that. I knew guys in football where if you went, hey, listen, man, I need
They
you in
need to
bed.
party, need
I
that
need
outlet.
I need you in bed at 9 p.m. every night. I need you waking up at 6 a.m.
They're
This is what
stagnant.
you need. They're not very good. They're
Right.
not creative.
Yeah.
They don't have fun. I feel like you do that with Jon. You go, listen, man, whatever you've been doing, stop. Don't do that. Now you got to wear freaking Dockers, put a collared shirt on. When I see that, I'm like, dude, you guys are fucking with him,
You
man.
think psychologically it's gonna
I think
freeze
it
him up.
changes And I think if we look at that fight, it wasn't the Jon Jones we've seen. If he fought, I think DC or Anthony Rumbles that night, yeah, he would have been in some trouble, man. I'm not saying he would have lost. He'd been in some trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a thought on that too, as far as I think that maybe because he's the middle brother, and it has a big brother type scenario with an Arthur. I think that actually if DC or a Rumble would have been in the ring with him, I think we would have seen a better Jon. I think he would have arose.
He would have stepped up.
I think he would have stepped up under that type of pressure because he's that kind of guy. His mentality, mentally, he's a pretty strong individual.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he gets stuck in a situation.
Yeah, he's good.
He rises to the occasion. I think
agree.
actually
100%.
a better way to beat Jon would be to almost like have him underestimate you, not kind of show up mentally. Maybe
That
he
would've
doesn't
been
want to take you
OSP.
out.
Yeah.
Right? That's what OSP was.
So
a dangerous
you
situation.
agree with the whole heel thing? I want him to embrace
Well, it's not
his
so
dark
much
side.
that I think that he's a heel. I just think that he's just not. That's why, like, okay, I even called him up a couple weeks ago and been like, hey, man, Jon, I have this, the phone booth fighting, my podcast with me and, Richard, it was right after the police officer incident, listen to what we talked about last week about you. Why don't you come on and we could talk? And, and one of the points I wanted to talk to him about was that sometimes I'm like being true to himself. I'm like, the Christianity thing, I think that what it is, the reason why there's a disconnect sometimes with Jon and the fans is because they're like, here are you, you talk about God and Jesus and you live, you're saying one thing on camera, but then we see you, off camera, you're having the issues in 2012 with the car, there's girls in the car, obviously now, the drug test came that one time, that was an issue. So it's like, I'm like, Jon, let's just be truthful. Like, just because you're a Christian, just be true to yourself
You can
about
still have fault.
You can be like, hey, man, this isn't what I am. This is what
Yeah.
I'm trying to be.
Yeah.
I'm like, it would be so much easier if you just came across that way. But sometimes the way on interviews you come across is like you're already there, but you're not. It's a path. I mean, almost everybody's still on the path, on the journey. I'm like, and if you embrace that more, which is who he is, he's actually, Jon, you hang out, he's a cool guy. He's a likable guy. He's not perfect. He's not without
Far
his
from it,
faults.
man.
But if you were just more honest with who you are as a person, people could relate to you a lot better and be like, oh, yeah. You're a monster inside the octagon, but like, yeah, you go out, you have a few drinks, you blow off steam, you could have your Christian faith and beliefs. And those are things that you aspire to and try to be more like and be like, well, I like the idea of being a good Christian and I try to, but like, pretty much every Christian or Muslim or anybody of any faith that I've ever met, they don't follow the rules 100%. They try to.
You still got to live your life, especially Jon.
People make mistakes.
Dude, if I'm Greg Jackson and I watch the OSP fight, he'd get back to his room, there'd be 2 professional hookers and a line of coke. Hey, let's get ready for
As
DC.
opposed to amateur
Let's
hookers.
get ready for DC, my man.
Yeah.
Because this shit ain't working.
Well, even DC said, he goes, I got to say, he said, I'm not making excuses, but to deal with the pressure of being a champion, he said, now that I've dealt with sort of having the belt and the amount of attention you get, he said, I am beginning to see a little bit from his perspective the kind of pressure that he's dealing with. He's only 27. I think he became champion at 24. There is a lot to deal with. There is maturity.
He's a full-grown man.
Yeah,
I don't like the whole.
I don't buy
That's
that.
actually Richard and I were talking about that again on our podcast and stuff, and talking about like and Richard brought that up, because a couple people were calling it, oh, he's a kid, like a kid. He's 28 years old, man. He's not a kid. That has to go out the window.
He's been champ for a long time. I don't buy that shit.
But
what this is the problem with him walking this kind of weird line that he's doing. I feel we see people making excuses.
Well, here I can use you as a great example, right? Because I can relate, and I think a lot of people can't relate to Jon, right? Well, why does he do that? And I tried talking about on our show a little bit about what makes us good as athletes and able to perform. The part of our brain that can shut down fear assessment sometimes doesn't make it to where we have the best social skills. For example, when you go out and party, do you just have a couple drinks, or do you party when it's time to party?
There's no just touching the water.
Brennan he can turn it on.
Right.
He doesn't just dip a toe.
I can't have a beer with dinner, but for the most part, I'm an extremist. I'm either
Are you?
the right way or I'm the wrong way, right? And I think that a lot of athletes, we are that way. That's why you see guys have so much problems in the media. Like, it's like, well, why could this guy do this? It's like, what do you mean why? Because the same guy that can stand on a pitching mound when all of a sudden he has to make this next pitch or the game's gone, that mentality would crush most people because they're thinking about the consequences if they miss this pitch.
Yeah.
And then they freeze and they lock up and then boom, they're not going to make it.
right.
That guy just goes, fuck it, let's go.
Yep.
Right?
All in.
Now that mentality helps him there on the field, in the octagon,
It can be a liability in
right.
in
All of a
civilian
sudden you're
life.
there, and it's like man.
Well, the thing that
that's a
when
really
you
good
were
point.
when you were coming up, especially when you're champ, social media didn't exist.
No.
So we don't know. Maybe Frank was at Spearmint Rhino going nuts, snapping necks and cashing checks.
Oh, yeah.
Or we don't know. There's no social media. But now Jon Jones goes
definitely
out
my
anywhere,
life is not as exposed as his
there's
life
phones
is.
It's like Johnny Manziel. All those
He's
guys.
screwed.
No,
too.
we are.
You don't think Michael
we're Big
Irvin
Brother,
and those
man.
boys did?
Oh, are
Fuck,
you kidding?
what?
You don't think Brian Callen did? I was going to say it might be athletes for sure, but
Yeah, let's
actors.
not-
But I'm just saying
No,
actors
and I
and
think we have that
comedians.
mentality too.
Actors and
Anybody
comedians.
can stand up in front like a comedian. I think that's why I tell Richard, I'm like, I think you should be able to relate to what I'm saying because that's scary to walk up in front of a group of people, being a comedian, going up on stage. I think, going out like when you did your monologue when I was down in Vegas, extremely impressive, right?
brother.
Because going
You should see
out
it
there
now.
is nerve-wracking. It's crushing. And so it's not like our brains aren't any different than the people
But
that
I
are
want my
spectating.
comedians doing lines out the back and taking shots.
Yeah.
I don't expect to see Michael Jordan. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like I think
a
we
cookie
all-
cutter. No, I mean that's why. I mean, let's face it. Why is Demetrius Johnson one of the best fighters, pound for pound, in the world? But he's probably one of the worst pay-per-view sales
He's too
because
nice.
he's a good guy. He's just a clean
way too
cut.
nice.
There's nothing. I mean, there's no skeleton in that guy's closet. If you're like, what's wrong
He
with
could
him?
run
Like,
for president.
Absolutely nothing's wrong with him. He's a politician's. Yeah,
That's
if you're,
the
You're
problem.
a campaign manager. You want him. But we don't
At
want
least
that.
he's
We want,
true to himself, though.
Yeah, no, and it is. I'm not telling the guy to
No,
go out there and be
I'm
crazy.
with you. That's what I
But
said.
it is what it is. It's like, hey, man, the guy's doesn't have issues.
That's what I said. With
He doesn't
Demetrius-
have issues.
With Demetrius
No.
Johnson, he just needs to get on the mic and like, I'm the best pound for pound fighter in the world. The only fight I'm gonna take next is Dominic Cruz super fight. What the fuck's up?
Yeah.
Instead, he gets on there. He's like, he's so nice.
Yeah, I know he's a good
People
guy.
just aren't buying it.
Yeah,
especially
people
when he's so
like
small.
twisted. I mean, look at our shows. We want some kind of storyline. You want,
Conflict.
you want conflict.
Conflict.
We want
If it's
train
all
wrecks.
positive, it's all positive,
it's boring.
people don't
Then,
dig
like,
it.
what's the point? You know what I mean? Like,
Let's
so
be
you have no
honest.
issues? Like, yeah, I mean, even a movie we watch Rocky. There has to be some adversity that the individual goes on, whether it's self-inflicted, whether it's external. But it's like, man, I need some turmoil. You know what I mean? I need something to make.
Listen,
fight.
I would
look
not-
at UFC 200. If Conor were to make the card, and we'll get into this right now, if Conor were to make the card because of all this conflict, might be the biggest UFC of all time.
Oh, yeah.
Bigger than
This only
UFC
helps out
100
more.
that you
Yeah.
were on. Which
Absolutely.
I think UFC 100 is by far the most stacked and best card. Me and Rogan have argued
always
this.
said that, yeah.
I think it's the best of all time. We look
Yeah.
at the names, the way things went down is ridiculous.
yeah.
But you look at UFC 200. And now with this whole controversy,
This added a lot to it.
all this stuff. There's so much.
No,
to
in
it
fact,
there,
it's funny
man.
because UFC 200 was kind of coming up and a million on, and it's like, yeah, it's UFC 200. And there's going to be this, but it didn't have that same electricity that I thought was around UFC 100.
Fuck no.
But then all of a sudden now with it's like Conor, who has been the face of the company now. Even in his conversations, he's doing like we had to fly out. And we had to get you a hotel. It's like, you're the UFC now?
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden now he has this conflict, and now it's like Dana takes him off. He doesn't retire. The UFC's abusing me. They're not allowing me to train.
And
So now-
what's your take on that, Frank? I mean, you're a guy who's been
Yeah.
you've been a UFC guy forever. Your boys with Dana, the Fertitas, Joe Silva got you into the UFC.
Yeah.
So when you see a guy like Conor, and you know the inside out of this game better than
Yeah.
anyone in the world, when you see Conor do this stuff, what's your take on it?
Well, I mean, I think as far as having to do the marketing for things, it's part of the game. I guess I just came in to accept it. It's like, if you go to college, you're going to have homework. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
hey, man, I don't have my weekends free. You're in school. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
that's just the name of the game, man. I'm at work, man. My boss told me I had to stay afterwards. I'm like, you're getting paid. You know what I mean? Like,
This is my only argument with that, Frank, is, he did more interviews for that world tour than any other fighter we've had in that short amount of time.
but he's also paid for it.
He's not paid for it.
No, I mean, but his pay at the end of the day.
He's getting paid no matter what, right?
Well, but they're taking that into account when they're doing the contract.
So let's say the Frank Mir, Brock Lesnar press conference, back then, it's huge, right?
Right.
Now, social media, man, it's so big. If Conor tweets out something or a video, it gets more views than any
Oh,
of
yeah,
that,
absolutely.
any of that stuff.
Yeah.
So to me, it's tough, man, because he is under contract. You are supposed to do that stuff.
Right.
But think about it. What he's done so far, the UFC PR team, you couldn't pay for this. You could not
Yeah, no,
pay
I mean,
as
it's
much hype as he's
extremely
done.
valuable.
I think also he was talking about the fact that he's got the biggest challenge of his life physically with fighting a bigger, stronger man. And
Who's now going to have a training camp?
Yeah, and I think
It's still a bad fight for him. I still,
I
I
don't
don't
agree
care.
with it. I
They
don't
go
agree
12
with it.
weeks, he's still not winning that
I
fight.
agree.
I mean,
I just
the
don't see
chances
how
are,
it's
if you
gonna
said
go
I had
down.
to put money on it, I'd still put money on Nate.
So would
on
I.
our first podcast, I called it out. They said, hey, what do you think? And that was one of the fights that I had called. And I'm like, I think this for this reason. And I gave about the boxing of Nate Diaz as far as his ways, his movement. They're like, well, Rafael Dos Anjos' kicks. I'm like, yeah, but they kick differently. Rafael's going to attack the leg, and he was able to land a lot of kicks on Nate. But as far as how
completely
Conor
different.
kicks,
Completely
the karate kicking style, going to the body, it has its own pros, but then it doesn't have the same beating up the leg.
No way.
I'm like, and then as far as his movement, I'm like, I can see him winning the first round, and then just Nate coming in there and overwhelming him. And I'm still saying that Conor is basically a blue belt on the ground. You know what I mean? Like his fight with Chad Mendes, it wasn't that he did anything. They're like, he's fight on the ground. I'm like, okay, well, he got taken down 4 times.
He stayed in guard.
Stayed in guard. He didn't do it. You saw that. There was no hip movement. I'm like, his defense
No
was
control.
to talk trash.
Yeah.
Basically, if you know what I mean, like that was his defense. It wasn't like, and then even when he got out, it was because Chad didn't have a proper training camp, and I think that he tried to make something happen and force it. His output on top wasn't that great, and then he
got
passes
tired.
the side control, goes for a top guillotine, which is a not very high percentage move. Instead of just staying on there and crushing him and just wearing him down, he tried to go for the home run shot and made a mistake. That's why
Paid for it.
But at least the Nate Diaz fight, he has it still. It's still, I guess, kind of a smart move, because if he loses again at 170, right?
Can't lose again, man.
Well, they lose at 170, goes to 145 because,
The
who's
glitter's gone.
I know, but
you
you know
lose
who's
2 in a row.
Yeah, but
and
you know
especially
who's-
gets choked out again. But
But you know what though? If he stays at 145, Edgar's waiting at 145,
know.
and I think
and Aldo, and
Yeah.
Aldo's
And
pissed.
is in shape.
Well, if they fight 100 times, I'm betting on Frank Edgar 100 times.
Really?
That's
Against
surprising.
Conor McGregor. Yeah,
He's going
absolutely.
to grind him. He's going to just take him
Yeah,
down.
because as far
It's
as
a
his
tough fight.
Well, his takedowns, his speed, and his mobility. He doesn't stand there. All those spin
He
kicks.
shots though.
What's that?
Frank has been known to get hit.
Yeah, he
And
does
Conor
take a
at
few
45
shots.
is a knockout.
No, he does hit. He takes, but as far as his movement and his speed and his takedowns,
tough to hit.
and then when he gets on top, and as far as Frankie uses a lot of lateral movement, right?
Probably the
Spin
best in
kicks,
the world.
hard to land. A spinning thrust, you're going to guy that steps
Well,
side
look
to
what
side.
he did.
You know
Look
what
what
I
he
mean?
did
It's
to
a
Cub
tough fight.
Swanson. Cub Swanson is a killer, and he just jammed him against the man.
dismantled
him.
Is that
Yeah.
a different? Is that a different?
No, I mean,
I think
that's a
Frank
good
Edgar.
comparison.
I think that's why. I mean,
It's a
think
tough
about
fight
it.
for
They don't
him.
even talk about it in UFC.
There's a
They
reason.
avoid bringing
There's
Frankie
a
Edgar's
reason.
name up with Conor McGregor.
there's a reason.
Because
Frankie's
I think
older,
that Joe
he's had
Silva
his time.
knows.
Yes.
They look at it and go, man, this is because if they go to the ground, and then on their feet, I think Frankie Edgar outboxes them there too.
He just doesn't. I don't think he hits as hard. He probably
No,
has
no.
better technique. He'll outproduce him round for round. But
I mean, it's hard enough though
not
that
a
he just
good
put Chad
matchup.
Mendes out.
But
You know what I mean?
but this is the only thing. If Conor stayed at 70, I hate the fight at 70.
Yeah, but his fans can still say
the hope I
he's
have,
losing
there's
or
an
winning.
asterisk. The
Yeah.
hope I have, I'm eating the Conor Lucky Charms here. I think his first fight at 70, he was just trying to knock him out, power shots. He used up all his energy and then just got worked, right? We saw him panic when he shot that terrible
Yeah,
double.
he
And
knew.
then
I think he decided it'd be better to get
he
choked
wanted
than
out.
get knocked out.
I agree 100%. So then we saw that. So I'm hoping they've made the proper adjustments where this fight, the only way he wins, I think, is by decision. Sticking and moving, landing shots and moving as Diaz keeps coming forward.
And he's going to have to do the only thing, too, and I brought up in our thing on the phone booth fighting, is that for every step that Diaz takes in that fight, he's going to have to take 3.
2 or 3.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So
100%.
Oh, you mean
it's a
because
ton
he's
of movement.
because
he's going to have to move a lot.
shorter. He's
Yeah,
shorter.
and Nate, he's just going to walk forward. That he marches you down, that forward pressure, and just
It's
keeps
exhausting,
peppering you
man.
and moving.
They break guys.
Yeah, it's
but
just-
you know the UFC brass probably better than anyone because you've had to deal with them so much. So I was on board with Conor when he's like, you know what, man, this is too much for me. I get ready for the biggest fight of my life. I'm not going on all these PR.
I relate with him.
So
I
I'm
understand.
cool with that. I'm like, all right, your tweet will do enough to sell this fight. But then he tweets, I think late last night, oh, I'm back, guys. UFC 100, it's on. Thanks, Lorenzo. Thanks, Dan, for doing this for the fans. Then this morning, Dana goes, that's not true. We never came to an agreement. So I feel like Conor's kind of pushing them into a corner and trying to get the fans to be like, yeah, he's back, to force their hand. And this is a play I'm not on board with. I think if you poke Dana too much, he's going to go, what? Fuck you.
I mean, also too, you got to look at the Fertittas. They have station casinos. Largest employer of casino workers in Nevada.
They're not
right?
going to be pushed around by Conor.
Well, and I think they know how to manage people and they identify. And you don't want to create a trend. We have control over the fighters right now. No one really steps out of line. Everybody pretty much does what they're
'cause
supposed
you
to
can't.
do. Right. All of a sudden now you have Conor. Let's say he's able to kind of mouth off, step out of line, and then he's still able to get success from it, you're going to have to deal with now several more guys that try to step up to the plate. Where if all of a sudden you sit there and make an example out of Conor, that's the only problem.
I don't think you have any other guys who could do what Conor's doing. I don't think there's one guy in the UFC who can do it. Let's name a guy. If Jon Jones right now was like, fuck you, I need more money, they would probably be like, see ya, man. I think Conor's the only guy who can do this. But after the antics this morning, man, I was on board. Then I saw him like, dude. Well, now you're fucking with people's emotions, because now the fans are like, wait a second, dude. We had your back. Now you're honey dicking and saying you're back, right? And it's not really going down. So I think I think it was a bad PR move on his part.
I wonder how
for the first time in his career.
Yeah. He's been fighting how long, Conor? A
while, but he's been in the UFC about 3 years.
Yeah, but he's been fighting a while. I almost feel like when you that quick to retire, even though it might be theatrical.
Oh no, he didn't retire.
No, you just wonder.
He retired for a day.
You wonder how much more he wants to do.
Oh no, you're looking at it wrong, B. That has nothing to do with it. He literally just did that to scare Dana White, and then he came literally. Right, I'm
sure.
It's not a retirement.
No,
that doesn't count.
I think what you're trying to say though is like, already if you're even willing to say those words, what
yeah,
does that kind of mean about the guy's mindset?
Well,
there are times that's an example, but I think with Brendan that. Not in this one. I think it's a different bluff.
No, but he's tasting fame on a level that very few people do, and it's the first time in his life where he is a legitimate superstar.
Yeah,
that can have
coming off a loss.
that can have a softening effect. I'm not saying he's not training hard. I'm not saying he's not hungry. I'm not saying he doesn't want to fight, but I have to believe that
it's a stressful thing.
It's a stressful thing.
Think of the stress we have just even on our level of it.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not even on your level. You're a world champ, Frank. You're a superstar.
But I mean, it's still, you know what I mean? Like being there with the cameras, the phones, everything you say has to be measured and thought of. And then the next day you're like, well, you said this. You're like, yeah, but I didn't say it under that context.
Yeah, but Frank, think when we do an interview, I mean, we especially for heavyweights who have personality, we'll give good interviews. Conor has come up with magical movie shit.
Yeah,
it's exhausting.
He does. Yeah, and his stuff is on, ESPN.
ESPN.
You know what I mean?
TMZ,
dude, I was watching ESPN.
Yeah, TMZ covers the guy.
I was watching ESPN. They were covering LeBron James' game. Breaking news. It pops up. Conor McGregor not retiring, coming back to UFC.
Yeah.
Never seen that ever.
Yeah.
No one's ever done that.
When I saw him get in the octagon with Nate Diaz, I saw a different face. I saw a guy who was more concerned with essentially acknowledging the love that was surrounding him, and he was not paying attention to the guy in front of him. Now, that's a mistake that people make when they get intoxicated by the public embrace. You see it all the time. You see it with actors who start making $30 million a movie, and their movies suffer inevitably. You see it with pitchers.
Yeah,
you see it with athletes who get paid huge contracts they can't hit as well.
I don't think that's all Conor.
I'm not either.
I think the UFC, he's such a mega star that they're literally using him for everything. I think that's what gets toll on him.
Yeah.
So he couldn't train properly, and it's also him too.
Just the public embrace can be a very damaging thing.
So Frank, what do you do? You're Dana White. What do you do with Conor?
Man,
there's no UFC 200 main event. I mean, you want to talk about UFC 200 supposed to be the biggest of all time? Not right now. It's a stacked card for the guys who are in it. We're like, man, that's a cool card. For the general public, like, where the fuck is Conor? Do we do Jon Jones DC?
Well, actually, I'm going to go ahead and steal Richard's thought process on that. Do you mind?
That's your partner in crime.
By the way, the podcast is Phone Booth Fighting, guys.
Great podcast.
Richard and I, were talking in the car about this, and he brought up the best point so far I heard. He thinks that Nate Diaz saying that either I fight Conor or I fight nobody is actually a way for them to kind of save face and pull Conor back. Be like, well, we wanted to get rid of Conor. It's not us, but Nate, this tough street fighting, just scrapper, refuses to face anybody else. So
we're going to do him a favor.
We're doing this for Nate. We're not doing this as a Conor.
So what do you do for the main event? That's fine, but then how do you salvage UFC 200?
Oh, he's back on. That's what I'm saying. Like, Conor comes back on. They get Conor back on the card fighting Nate Diaz and save face because Nate won't fight anybody else, and we're going to do Nate a solid.
We owe it to Nate.
I don't see it happening because I think now after this tweet this morning, Dana's going, you really want to do this? You think you have the power where you can tweet and we're just going to lay down? I like I said, I was on board, but if you know the UFC brass, they're going. Okay.
But there's a lot of money to be made on this fight, so I would not be surprised.
Money talks.
Money talks.
There's no bigger guy.
Money talks.
I don't know, man.
Because we all want to see it. You know?
I think they put it back on there. I mean, you got people buying, plane tickets and making vacation time to get out there. I think that you'll anger the fans too much not to provide them with a certain.
I think they're going to figure it out.
They'll figure it out. And like I said, so far, the way to save face so they don't look like they just cower down to the power of Conor. And
Nate.
It's like, well, we're doing Nate a solid. You know what I mean? We would say,
Which they've never
screw
done
the guy.
before.
You know what I mean? But Nate, he took the fight on 9 days' notice.
We owe this
he
to
wants
Nate
his
after all
fight.
these years.
Yeah, we owe it to him.
Do you guys
Nate,
think
the Diaz brothers?
do you
They're
guys,
finally going to acknowledge that.
Do you guys think that fighters, in comparison to other athletes, this is the question? Do you think fighters tend to be a little bit more sensitive, more emotional?
I think all athletes are.
Yeah.
Yeah, most
Really?
athletes.
Okay,
for
so
sure.
it's an athlete thing.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
High-level athletes are pretty sensitive
Well,
to certain
I think
stuff.
that anybody that goes out there and performs in a situation where it's nerve-wracking or scary, that there's a lot to risk and lots to reward. Obviously, you're not comfortable with yourself.
Well,
there's something that you had to prove that you went out there. You're like,
Yeah,
there's something
yeah.
in
Especially
your wiring
fighting.
wise. Yeah, it's like, not if you choose to fight somebody, you can't be exactly wired right. You obviously, there's something a little wrong with you.
Everyone's a little weird.
You're out to prove something. You're insecure
Celebrities
about
are
something.
the
anger.
same way, though.
Yeah.
Celebrities
Well,
are
fucking
sensitive.
comics.
to
How many
stuff.
comics you know that are, including me, that are functional?
Comics
that are
for
that.
sure. No.
Who would want to
Actors.
listen to a comic that was functional?
Exactly.
I agree,
mean,
but that's where you get your material. But actors, what?
Yeah.
Sensitive,
Dude.
What the? They're
Yeah.
more sensitive than
And
me.
crazy.
I think
And
anyone
crazy.
that puts himself out.
I had
there
a
is
no
Well, I
head-
think that's why
I had a
actors
no
too, used to
headshots
be able to
policy.
be other people. They're already a type of person that is uncomfortable with themselves, and so they grew up trying to always be a chameleon and maybe adjust their personality and who they are when they walk in the room, so that you're happy and you'll like me. And that's a skill set that makes them a very good actor.
But there's
okay,
some-
now be this. Okay, I can be that.
Dude, I saw Tobey Maguire in my gym, and I was like, "That's fucking Spider-Man." That's literally. I was like, "That's
about-
Spider-Man."
you can put him in your pocket.
I bet when he got that role, he's like, "Oh hell yeah, I can finally be this badass." I guarantee you, Tobey Maguire's never been punched in the face.
That's true.
I could have flicked him in the nose and ruined his
I
day.
think I saw a thing on him when I never watched a lot of them, but a few of them were pretty comical. That what was the thing with Ashton Kutcher? Kutcher?
Punked or-
Yeah, Punked.
Yeah.
I think I saw one with him where they something happened. He
I
got out
read
of
that he didn't handle it well.
Yeah,
he didn't handle it well.
I just remember him putting his hand on his chest. Oh no,
That's
And
Spider-Man.
I was just like,
Hey, bro,
Yeah.
you can't be Frank Mir's friend if
Yeah,
you do
I'm like,
that.
Yeah.
You should put your friends in all those shitty situations
Yeah.
and see who
just,
you're
yeah.
gonna ride and die
Yeah,
with.
it's like, hey, did
Did they pass the Mir test?
You fainted and pooed your pants? What the fuck, dude? You're out. Come on,
That was
man.
like,
You can't shit
You
yourself.
can't tie a knot? Oh, fuck you.
Well, yeah, because I mean, you saw a situation. What was the one guy? Kid, it's funny because I've always seen him out in public here when I'm in LA. For whatever reason, I always run into him. Not that we talk to each other, but
Yeah.
I can't say his last name. Wilmer.
Valderrama or something?
Right.
Oh,
They-
Valderrama.
They
I know
switched out his
Wilmer.
car, right, on that one. Yeah. They switched his car out. And so then they had some guy that was angry, like smashing up what he thought
yeah,
was
when
his
he walked
Escalade.
out, I know.
Yeah, he walks out, he sits there, and he's not doing nothing, he's just paralyzed. I'm like, oh man, why would you sign the release and let that go out?
I agree.
Like, why would you
know.
then?
I agree.
Because you had guys that afterwards say, "Oh, I was punk," but you see how they reacted. Like I remember The Rock, right? They
What was it? It was
they
like
blew up his trailer
That's
because
right.
they switched out his trailer and said something about to the liking of it, like, "Oh, you left something plugged in the iron." He goes, "Well, did you do that?" So the guy goes, "Well, why would you do that? That's why it happened." He goes, "What?" And like started getting like, "Whoa, it's a, hey, you're
The
on
Rock
Punk."
was about to freak
yeah.
out.
I was like, "Well, you see how he
Roid
feels."
rage.
What? He's like,
No,
"Mm."
he's a. I mean,
Yeah,
pretty
but
tough
yeah,
dude.
but that's what I'm saying. Like, well, chips are down. I mean, he's smiling,
He
happy.
passed
like,
the Frank Mir test.
Oh yeah,
We'll put it
definitely.
that
I'm like,
way.
all right,
He
you know,
passed the
I
Mir
don't know
test.
if I would.
He passed
I don't
the
know if
Mir
I
test.
would. It
Oh, dude,
depends.
hold on. If somebody was keying your Porsche,
Oh, yeah.
they'd be
They wouldn't be able to hear it.
Dude,
they wouldn't be able to hear
dude,
it.
he'd pick them up and throw them on their fucking head.
for sure.
I can always tell when I know
30
exactly how to
days
get
after
your
that,
buttons,
Bad
man.
noise. Let's do some current events with that Evan. We used to call him the beard. I walk in today, dude.
He
shaved
shaved
his
up,
beard.
man. He's all smooth.
After a good 3.5 year run, it was time.
You're just the Cub now.
I guess.
You're Evan the Cub.
You got a lot of other options.
It's the
Yeah.
Cub or the Otter.
We're all getting new nicknames. Keto Kid over here. I don't know what the hell I am
You
now.
look
but-
like a brand new guy. You don't even look remotely you don't look like the same guy.
Well, you're obviously not Evan. I don't know who you are.
I don't know who the fuck you are.
I'm Evan's
He had a
identical
huge
twin,
beard,
to
Frank.
Evan. I killed Evan. He's
What do
dead.
you got for current
Yeah.
events, Ev?
First one that we got for today, Tom Brady. Fucking Deflategate is still a thing.
So boring.
The U.S. appellate court sided with the NFL and reinstated his suspension. So he has to serve another 4-game suspension, lose a bunch of money.
God damn it.
But I
Jeez.
don't know. I guess he's guilty. He wasn't guilty.
If you look at his tax, he's pretty guilty. I don't even care. I'm a huge Tom Brady fan. I don't give a fuck he's taking the air out of the footballs. Every quarterback does. Everyone does in the NFL. The thing is, if you look at because he had to give up his cell phone to the NFL, right? So you look at the text, and like he would text with the guy, and he called him the deflator. He would his name for the guy who handled the football was the deflator.
That'll run you in some trouble.
Yeah, again, who gives
why
a fuck?
is that?
That's my thing. I mean, it happened.
Yeah.
You take this, but I mean, like for
Why
the
is
fact
that
for it
against
to make it to
the
that
rules?
level, it's like
How ridiculous!
Also, why is that against the rules? Like,
You can't mess with the football; it's an advantage.
Oh, I got you.
But again,
all
give
the quarterbacks kind of do this. Some like the
all of
inflated
them do it,
more,
yeah.
less. You know,
it's a preference thing. But again, give Tom Brady that ball as full as you want, and he's still gonna beat the shit.
Do you have
any
any preferences with your ritual before you go out? Do you have a ritual?
No, I've actually tried to later in my career develop more because earlier in my career, I purposely wouldn't warm up. Or, not because of being lazy or anything like that, but I was like, no,
you don't want to waste energy.
Well, no, I wanted to make it like a real fight. I'm like, and then like even
You're
game
crazy.
planning. It wasn't until I went out with Greg,
Straight crazy.
Greg Jackson, that like he started having game plans. Before that, if you watch any of my fights, like, what are you gonna do? I'm like, whatever happens. Like, what do you mean prepare? It's a fight. You just go out there and then just start fighting.
Do you feel like the game kind of adapted?
Yeah.
We have to start coming up with game.
Well,
plans?
because now guys sit there and they watch film and break things down because I mean even
they know what you're going to do in certain
Right.
situations.
Yes. So then you have to start bringing up, percentages and statistics, and then that becomes the more sportive aspect of it. But I kind of like the idea of just. I wish it was just like a round table, like night of the fight, 15 of us.
You don't know who you're going to.
We don't know who we're fighting.
That'd
Also,
be
boom,
cool.
doors open. I'm fighting this guy. Cool. Now we just fight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you
Wouldn't
kind of
sell
like,
many
you were
pay-per-views, but
looking
I'm
at
with
the
you.
octagon as this high-level decorated fighter. Frank Mir was looking at the octagon more as a practice arena for the real deal, for when you, because that's so interesting to me.
Did it change when you went? Because obviously you were doing your camp in Vegas. Did all that change when you got with Greg Jackson's camp?
Yeah,
And
when
you
I went
see
out
how,
there.
I mean, he's the Yoda of MMA.
Yeah, and it definitely started actually implementing and being more a believer of game plans. And then not Ricky Lindell, big on trying to
He's amazing.
drop
Might be one
game
of the
plans,
best
go
in the
things.
What does Ricky Lindell do for those of us?
Wrestling.
Yeah, grappling. He's a black belt in jiu-jitsu and then wrestled at Iowa. And
Wow.
Might be one of the best in the world. He's
Yeah,
amazing.
when it comes to grabbing people, you know what I mean?
Good dude too, man.
But then a real good analytical mind and breaking things down. And I try to now have a better idea of like, okay, we're going to do this, do that. And then Angelo, Reyes, the boxing coach that I use now, he's very good at that also. You know what I mean? Boxing, they have game plans. In his sport, he comes from a background where they're like, what do you mean? You don't just go in there and just start fighting. You know what I mean? Like, and that was actually probably a mindset that I had a holdover from my days. It's like, well, it's like, like a jiu-jitsu tournament, or, you don't know who you're facing. Why would you have, you have game plans as far as like reads. I'm going to go for your sleeve and pull here. Well, what are you going to do? We're going to go this way. Okay, well, obviously you're going to try to pass my guard standing. Then I have a setup, I have a system in play for that. Oh, you're going to try to crush and go forward pressure. I have a system for that. But as far as coming out going, okay, I'm fighting a fighter and he's going to pass this way. So the weeks coming up, I'm going to train for this. It's like, I don't know. I'm like, that's not fighting, but it is fighting. It is a sport.
It is and it isn't.
It is, and that's
your
what I'm like,
mindset's good, but that's why your coaches, are super important.
What about, have you thought about going into the EBI, Eddie Bravo?
Yeah, and actually I've watched it. Actually, that's one
That's
thing.
why you're here, right? Because you came in town
I came
to
and
watch
watched
EBI.
Yeah, and then Richard and I sat down and commentated a couple of the fights, and then it actually re-inspired my love for jiu-jitsu again, because I think for years
Isn't it
I've kind of
great?
drifted away from it.
Isn't it fucking great?
Yeah, because you could go out there and I'm like, man, that's not jiu-jitsu, man. That's passing a half guard and sitting down on people.
Not Eddie Bravo
That's not
style.
submission. Yeah, that's not. To me, it's like, that was the whole art of jiu-jitsu was, hey, man, put someone to sleep, like that's the art, break bones, like, let's go. And for many years, with the IBJJ and stuff, it just, the point system and guys specialized for it, it drifted away from that.
The
now
50-50 kind of ruined jiu-jitsu.
the different aspects, just the whole stall, guys just
Scoring,
sit there,
stalling.
get an
But then
advantage.
Eddie
I'm like,
Bravo
man, this
saw
guy
that.
has no idea. But then they pay the price. It's like, well, when's the last time a black belt in jiu-jitsu won the heavyweight title, been champion in the UFC? You don't see them make transitions that well over.
No,
Back,
never.
15 years ago, a guy who was a black belt in
Everyone.
jiu-jitsu could smash people in
Hell
a fight.
yeah.
But now you guys go there and I'm like, yeah, but some of the techniques, that they're doing, I'm like, that would never apply to
So
real
with
fighting.
Eddie Bravos, you were more inspired.
Yeah,
right?
and then watching some of the guys
Me
go
too,
out
man.
there. The kid that won it yesterday, Gordon Ryan, phenomenal. He was
He
John
beat
Danner.
Gary Tonin?
No, they Gary Tonin. Fuck, that guy's unbelievable too, man. What
He's the best I've ever seen in person. As
Yeah.
far as pure no-gi
Yeah.
jiu-jitsu,
Jesus.
when I watched him,
Yeah, he was incredible.
Jeez,
Yeah,
that's saying a lot.
there's something there at Danaher's gym, man. They got something in the water. They know what they're
the fuck's
doing.
going on.
Eddie Cummings is also phenomenal. Their way that they leg attack, but then everything, their whole complete game, sweeps, and the bottom game is so active and attacking from them, on top of being great on top. But Yuri, they met in the quarterfinals, Gary Tonin, and they went into triple overtime. And in the last setback, I'm not taking it away from Yuri, but when Gary took his back, who can get the fastest kick, as the referee is getting ready to call say go and start the clock, he's already halfway to the mat getting his shoulder down. And then go, boom, and really no one fought and argued. I'm like sitting there going, hey, wait a minute.
It's a huge advantage.
Yeah, I'm like, wait a minute. He was already like starting the motion before he go, but they didn't say nothing about it, whatever. And then so Yuri went on to face Gary Tonin's teammate, Gordon Ryan, and then he was able to he choked him out in the overtime.
So you would be down to do something like that?
Oh, absolutely. Because to me, it's back to being submissions orientated. You know what I mean? Where if someone sits there and it's like they get in a position, it's like, okay, that's great, you're there, but position should be for the advantage of going for a submission. Guys have gotten past that now. Now it's like, well, I get in the position just to sit here and hold it. And
earn
just
points,
so I'm
who gets your heart racing in terms of an opponent for the EBI?
Not really.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
Oh no, there's really nobody out there that I'm thinking, I got to fight that guy. There's lots of great grapplers out there. I mean, Barnett's a great, Barnett's a good grappler. Verdum, and then as far as in the grappling world, I mean, obviously I have Gracie, Roger,
Buchecha, Frank Mir, Buchecha,
but I mean, as far as the point system, the way we're going now, I mean, to fight him in an IBJJ type official rules.
No, Eddie Bravo. I don't want to see you in IBJJ. I'm trying to see the real legit Frank Mir style.
Yeah, but I'm definitely. I mean, it would be at least a year before I try to go and do one. I'd like to. That's why now I've been back in the gym the last couple of times going with Robert Drysdale and just being re-inspired.
Why doesn't he get in it? Why doesn't he do EBI?
I don't know. I'm going to talk to him when I get back tomorrow in the gym. I'll see him and be like, hey,
he's
man.
a freak.
Really? Yeah, Drysdale's a monster.
They need to let the chain off that dude in the EBI. Yeah. He's a freak.
Jesus.
Robert Drysdale?
Yeah. I'm so jealous of you high-level guys when you talk about jiu-jitsu. It's such a beautiful sport.
Because we did the EBI Invitational at On It. We did the commentating.
Yeah,
Brian's never been that close to it, and there was.
I didn't see them submitting. I didn't see what they were doing. Yeah. I literally would be like, huh? How'd he tap? What was he doing? It was so subtle.
How old's that girl? There was a
13-year-old girl, Filipino girl.
What
Unreal.
The fuck?
Was it Grace?
Yes.
Yeah, she was there last night.
Was she there last night?
Yeah, they had her as far as she was the exhibition match before
Did she roll some poor girl up?
Well, and actually the girl she faced was a little bit bigger than her and aggressive and looked like a really good solid grappler. Was trying to be decent, but she obviously wanted to avoid her guard. She looked like she was trying to attempt takedowns and move around and maybe just throw her down, and if she could take her down and pass the guard at the same time, but it didn't want to blast her with a double and end up in her guard. And then at one point even jumped guard, and that's the only problem with the EBI system that I was like, at a certain point you do got to call stalling, because then the girl closed up the triangle on the body triangle from within the guard, right? So she has Grace on top of her. She closed the guard.
She's not advancing with it.
Not really. I mean, she was sitting up going for a guillotine, but obviously because her hips are so tight to Grace's hips, she couldn't really get a good bite, And it was about 3 or 4 minutes. You could hear the crowd. Everybody.
4 minutes.
It was about 3 or 4 minutes, right?
They should definitely come in.
It's like at that point, it's like
when you see these guys flowing, it's chess. It's like it's high level kinetic chess. And when I think about the kind of strategic mind you'd have to have, like sort of being able to read what that person's going to do, feel what they're going to do, be ahead of them in the game, and catch that. What was fascinating with high level guys, like you guys, is that you have to catch each other on the transitions. I think it's almost like you're going for the next thing and he's opening himself up and then you get, but it was just for me to be a novice watching this was fascinating because they were getting tapped with shit. I just was like,
you know what's surprising, Frank, and you see a resurgence in jiu-jitsu in the heavyweight division, and I can't believe I'm saying this. He's been around forever, but the way Rothwell has been choking. Yeah. Granted, he just got his ass whipped by JDS, but before that, I mean, with his front guillotine choke. Yeah, I mean he was literally choking dudes out,
especially
Josh Barnett.
Yeah,
that was impressive. That impressed me,
man. It's pretty crazy though. Like you see a resurgence from Rothwell.
It's a form of mastery, and like with anything, whether it's a musical instrument, jiu-jitsu, whatever, it's kind of the whole point. And it goes back to your thing about the journey. It has a lot of times less to do almost with the victory. Of course, victory is very important and all that, but the journey and what you learn and what you get from
being a martial artist,
compensating for your
and then heavyweights, real quick.
The
reason why heavyweights, like Brendan, if I had to grapple Brendan, I know he's going to be good at jiu-jitsu, right? Because there's also a framework. That's why typically you don't see heavyweights very good at jiu-jitsu. Yeah. Because I mean, if we sit there, I'm like, okay, can you put your knees to your chest? and they go to do this, and like, how are you going to stop someone from passing your guard?
Yeah.
You can't even lift your knees up, because of their stomach, because of just the way they're built. Typically their legs and stuff is just the thickness. It doesn't really bode well for being able to move and be able to put yourself in positions to be effective. That's why, like the one guy that Rustam, there was a Russian, that phenomenal freestyle wrestling guy,
man.
but he was probably about 240, and he was in the tournament last night, he had a north-south choke. I think he choked out one guy, but most people he just finished on the escape pattern, right? And then in the end, he ended up getting choked by Gordon Ryan, right? I found it more boring to watch, but then people are like, oh, he's not doing this. I'm like, yeah, but it's because the heavyweights,
he doesn't have the capability.
He doesn't have the ability to move like how the Gordon Ryan kid was moving.
Used to seeing.
It's like, well, watch Gordon Ryan. He can touch his toes. You know what I mean? This guy can't. Like
he just doesn't have the.
And so there's not a lot of heavyweights that have that flexibility.
You've always been really a flexible.
Yeah, no, and
with your striking and your movement.
If you see like Nogueira, obviously, why did he have a triangle armbar, everything off the back? He had the body that he could do it.
Look at Verdum.
Yeah, Verdum has the body
guard
that could do it. Yes,
insane.
He has those
long
legs. Did you know you were going to pop his arm?
No,
Nogueira's?
Yeah.
No.
Did you?
I fought him, right? Lost, and then you fought him after that when you snapped his arm.
Yeah.
That scared me. Because you looked kind of cold. Like you just got up and you were like, fucking, there you go. You better tap next time.
That's the martial arts training, right?
Dude, you know what? I was at that fight, right? And you did. And I came back to the locker room to congratulate. I don't know if you were kind of a little out of it, kind of, because you gave me the right hand. But I was like, bro, like for whatever reason, because we're not that close of friends, especially then. But it was almost like, this is so weird. It was almost like redemption for me because I got knocked out. And then Frank ripped his arm off right after I fought.
I was
like, brother.
I'm like, because people are talking about like,
America.
You got caught or knocked out by Nogueira. I'm like, dude, he just caught me with that shot. I mean, his right hand was a decent right hand. It hurt. You know what I mean? Like, it had me on Queer Street. I was doing like, wobbly leg.
And then he
I looked like Baby Bambi. Yeah.
Fucked up.
Damn, man.
Fucked up. And
God.
Jeez,
I remember just going.
I don't know why.
As a man,
I
remember.
celebrate like that. And I never do that. I came in the back locker room like, brother.
I felt like I was watching like a lion kill another lion or something.
So it's funny because how bad the shot was. I was underwater when the shot hit me. Boom. I'm like grabbing the leg. I'm feeling things. And then I'm like stuck in the guillotine. I'm like moving around. And then all of a sudden, boom. Like when I finally came to, I was already in the Kimura the second time. I don't remember the first roll through. Don't remember nothing.
Wow.
So I mean, that was all on autopilot. Like my wife always laughs
Instinct.
about it. She goes, look, every time you get hurt in a fight, you still are like almost in jiu-jitsu mode. She goes, obviously that's what you're ingrained with, right? That's what you know. And I was like, yeah, I guess if anybody ever jumps me in my sleep, I might
They're
fucked. But because
my leg.
Because I had Ricky Lindell was in the corner. I'm like, what just happened? He said, explain to me. So as I'm talking the post thing about what happened, it's because he had to tell me like, what did I do? He goes, we went for guillotine, then you went over, and then you backstepped, grabbed the Kimura, and then you did your re-roll thing to get him to break his grip. I'm like, okay, gotcha.
Then you came through and were like,
so you could talk about it.
Yeah, so I can sit there and talk. All right, so here I was.
Oh, wow. You're like, oh, my God, that is sick.
I was like, God, that was a really good backstep.
Oh, wow.
That
would have get him go.
So
That's
funny.
you, Frank.
Frank, what'd you do? I don't remember anything.
What else you got,
Ev?
Ev?
To the level of your training.
All right, so we'll jump back to a little bit of the Conor stuff we were talking about earlier. His coach, John Kavanagh, went on the MMA Hour today. And I would say that we can probably agree that most of the things that come out of the Conor's camp are kind of, they're planned. They're planned strategic moves.
Depends, yeah.
No one on his, according to his coach, not one person knew Conor was going to send that tweet saying he was back on 200 today. Not one person on his management team did that. Completely blindsided all of them, and even they don't really know what's going on.
Is that Conor panicking a little bit now?
Yeah,
I was on board, and then when he did that, I was like, is that a little bit of panic mode?
Who can tell what's in a man's head? I don't know.
That's crazy. None of his team knew.
Yeah, no one. Here's a little tidbit too.
That's kind of weird too as a team, like to sit there and not be cohesive. I mean, one thing is like if I'm with, like, hey, we're all together, my boys, and you do something dumb, I might sit there and go, hey, did you realize so and so? I'm like, no, what? Huh?
Yeah, man.
Do you know what? It makes me?
It makes my wife nuts. She's like, fucking men, you guys always, what I mean? You see somebody out, like, hey, who's out? Like, I don't know. But for her to go out there and go, no, man, he's on his own. I'm like, wow, aren't you his coach?
That's pretty weird.
Well,
you're gonna sit there. I would have said, you know what? We're gonna talk about it. I'll let you guys know when I have further information. I wouldn't be like, I had no fucking clue.
But see, here's
that's kind of like just, hey, your check, man.
That's on him, man.
But here's what it makes me think about, and this is what's worrying. Is that I think when you become like when you get all that attention and you start to feel like you're this huge star,
don't think you need the team?
You feel like you're
or
your team starts getting a little bit afraid to tell you the truth.
That's true.
Your team starts worrying that your team's like, I don't know if I can all this stuff is.
Did you
he's
ever have that,
acting
Frank?
differently.
No, I've always been pretty cohesive with the guys.
Pretty level-headed.
Yeah, Ricky Lindell, James Horn, Drysdale, all these guys. I mean, just last Easter,
They're all your boys.
We're at the house, man. The wives, the kids, we're all playing with each other. I'm like, you got to spend time and bleed. Might as well just be friends. And most people,
you're also too smart to get that confident, aren't you, Frank? I mean, you're always.
Yeah, well, like we talked about,
paranoid.
there's no guarantees, right?
You're dealing with percentages, and I feel like Conor was starting to think that he was in the 100% club for a while.
Yeah.
And that's
to that
natural.
point, what you were saying a little bit earlier about Jones's drawing ability as is he like one of those top guys?
Yeah.
There's a tweet here that gives a little info about the gates for those two. The last 12 UFC events headlined by Jon Jones pulled in 26 million. The last 5 events, Conor, 28 million. He did more in 5 events than what Jones has done in 12.
As Brendan was saying, he is your cash train.
And also to a point of what you were kind of alluding to or starting on, what does that mean for the camp? Like, to read into it, it's like, what does that mean that you as a coach don't have the back of your athlete? What's going on in your guys' camp? Like, back at camp, like, how cohesive can you guys be that A, you didn't know that he made that tweet, and B, you don't already have a game plan or a story set in I don't know what he's doing.
100%. Because the first thing I would do before I sent that tweet was text Henner, Gracie, or Tony Jefferson, like, hey, man, I'm going to blast this out right now. Make sure we're all together.
But I don't think his camp,
I do that
from what I understand.
I do it for spell checking purposes.
Me too. I send it to my brother. I'm like, does this look right? He's like,
I do it too. Good. I go with Ricky and Richard. I'm like, hey, man, I'll screenshot what I'm about to hit send on. Too, like, hey, man, does this look right? Nah, man, that doesn't sound. You got to do this. I'm like,
you need a period here, a comma there.
Sometimes I send to my brother who'll go, that doesn't make sense. Don't post that one.
Part of this problem might be that Conor's camp didn't agree with this fight to begin with. Didn't want him to fight Nate again. Wanted him to go back to 45.
You still got to be a team, though.
Yeah,
no matter what. Because the plan is to fight him.
Well,
so
especially
if the fighter's like, this
people.
is the plan. We all agreed on it.
He's not listening to his camp. He's not listening to his coaches. He's not listening to the guys around him that are strategizing, that are there for that reason.
Well, and like what you're saying, like being a team. One thing, we can have internal conflict. You know what I mean? That's like me and my brother, sister. My wife. My wife and my kids. We can have a fight in the house. But when I step outside that house, nobody can say they've seen me and my wife arguing.
You're a team, man.
It's like, I don't care if I'm mad at her, she's mad at me. The minute we go out into the public eye, it's like, boom, cohesive unit.
That's good. I mean? That's good discipline. That's excellent family discipline. I need to start learning that.
Really?
My wife and I tend to fight.
That's fucking life, Brian Callen. Most people don't bring that shit out.
No, and I've actually had to make some adjustments because
do.
My father's from Cuba, right? So my way of dealing with women at first, he was the one who taught me, might not have been the best.
A little bit macho, a little old world,
a little strong hand to the face.
Yeah, bitch, silence,
silence, woman.
Cállate.
To such an extreme to where, like I remember one time my wife, we were out, and and I've obviously because we're still married, I've improved upon that, but we were out and I said something and she corrected me. And I just kind of looked at her, and she even afterwards was like, the blood left her face because I never looked like that. I mean, I was like,
she got to Ray Rice, bitch.
So we left.
There will be blood.
My actual
wait till we get home. That was a wait till we get home.
So we're in the car, and I'm like, I don't give a fuck if I say the sky is fucking pink. And you're looking up and it's blue. You don't say shit. You don't correct me. You just go with it. Then afterwards, you can be like, hey, what was up with that? You know what I mean? We'll talk, I mean, and then now I've actually moderated going, hey, maybe I tell this person this, but you know what I mean? We'll go with it.
You don't know how you come off.
Yeah.
Cultural lines are hard to cross sometimes. It's just tough to blur.
I fixed it a little bit because then, my wife kind of came back and she's a strong woman.
Your wife isn't a pushover.
No,
right?
she is not a pushover.
My problem is
she's tough.
My problem is you have a little bit of it too because I talk to everyone the same. So the way I talk to Brian, I talk to everyone the same. And it doesn't really work.
Well, because you're so big, and I always have to tell him Brendan is intense, and he is a perfectionist, and he's detailed, and nobody works harder. So if other people aren't picking up the slack, the problem with him is he's the farthest thing from a bully. Like, I could probably punch Brendan in the face for real if he was really mad. I don't think you'd actually hit me back.
No, not you.
You'd just be like, you fuck. I mean, even though you could kill me, you'd be more hurt and probably walk away.
For sure.
But when shit's not going well and people aren't picking up he'll mongoose up. He's got that long neck. He'll just mongoose up and get about an inch from your face and be like, I don't get it, man. I don't get it. Please explain. I'm like, you have to. You literally.
Brian's all you can't
You're
do
literally
that.
going to shrink this person into the fucking ground. You can't be 6'4", 255 and be that way. Sorry, you just can't. You actually have to keep your voice down. Because you're the biggest, strongest gorilla in the room. You're the lion, and most people are dogs or cats. Yeah.
What else you got?
guys.
What else you got? Ev?
Sorry, that just happened. That just popped out, you guys. PhoneBoothFighting.com. Just remember that. That's Frank Mir's and Richard's podcast.
All right, so we got to talk about the two. One. I'll call it like 1.5, really. Big names that left us over the weekend: Prince dying and China.
Yep.
Yeah.
If anyone remembers China from
I do.
WWF.
No, hell yeah, I do.
All right, just making sure you're on board
The
with
good
that.
thing about China, I talked a little bit at our Oklahoma live show about this, is a lot. I think there's been 105 WWE guys have died since 2005 or something. That's it, or 90. I forget what year, but
It's 1995.
a ton of them have died, man. But no one's acknowledging it because it's not considered a real sport. So there's no commission or anything like that. These guys are, I mean, they're doing some intense shit, man. And they're on the road 300 days a year.
Wow.
They're taking supplements.
That's
they're doing all
brutal.
sorts of stuff to it's brutal, man.
Yeah.
So China passed away, but she's donating her brain to science for CTE.
Oh, okay, that'd be good.
Well, Kurt Angle said,
Which I wish, and I know some people give me heat on this. I wish Kevin Randleman would have done the same because he's really the most current UFC guy who's passed away.
Yeah, because it's
Could
still a
have
very
signs of
large
CTE.
unknown. We don't know. We're kind of the front runners here and what's going to happen.
We're guinea pigs right now.
Yeah,
Frank.
yeah, we're figured out.
Kurt Angle, who won a gold medal in the Olympics, who decorated American wrestler, said he broke his neck twice, not wrestling, but doing WWE. I mean,
They do gnarly stuff.
He said
Oh,
he's
yeah.
gotten way more injuries just being in WWE by far than he
believe
did
it.
as a
Yeah,
lifetime
jumping
wrestler.
off him
Yeah,
tables
some of
and
the
shit.
things that those guys are doing is nothing incredible. And then again, they're not doing it once every 3 months. Those guys are doing it, you know.
Would you ever consider, like, here's one for you. If WWE came, let's say you retire, I don't know when you want to retire, but let's say 2 years from now, WWE said, hey, we want to do a cool thing with you and Brock.
Oh,
Would
yeah.
you consider
and not even
WWE?
just the Brock angle, just doing the pro wrestling in general. I think that's
You'd be down.
Oh yeah, it's fun. You know, it
feel
looks
like
like,
you'd be good at
yeah,
it.
you know what I mean. Like,
Hell yeah.
well, you know what I mean.
You get to be theatrical. And
Yeah.
You'd be down. Wow, that's cool.
by
And
the
then-
way, for a second, and it's probably, we talked last time and you said you want 5 more years because you're, you know, a fighter and you're crazy and you know, I can see you doing it. But how do you feel? Are you thinking 5 more years? Do you ever think like, because I know a huge thing we were also talking about was what you're going to do after. Because I think personally you have a great career in
Could be an
commentating.
analyst.
Yeah.
You're just a very good analyst and you're too
100%.
articulate.
Yeah, I mean,
not to.
obviously, yeah, that's where I'm going to go.
But you're going to
I-
miss fighting.
Yeah, I do.
Is
And
that
I
a
just want to
fear?
write it out as, big time. And I just want to try to write it out for as long as I can. Because I mean, once we retire, you retire. You know what I mean? And I've seen too many other athletes that have done it for a long time, and they talk about that. You know, like hanging it up too early. And I think that because they always talk too. You always see the guy like Muhammad Ali as an example. They talk about how he had a couple fights too many. Past what he should have.
Yeah.
I still think that a guy like that, back in life, like, I don't know, I kind of live by that motto. You regret the things you don't do in life more than you regret the things that you did.
true.
So
But what else is left for you? I get that, Frank, but what else is left for you?
the same thing was left in the first thing.
What haven't you accomplished?
Well,
That's the
it's
thing.
not
Like,
even
I understand a guy not retiring because he's in pursuit of something.
I like
What like if you go down your checklist, what else
The
is
belt.
left?
You got
Oh, but I mean, I guess the thing too is I never fought for those reasons in the first place. They just kind of occurred. You know what I mean? Like even when I first got in the UFC, it wasn't even about getting paid money. That occurred and it was great. I was like, hey, then becoming a champion, I was like, oh, hey man, that's awesome. That's great. Something, but it was never the reason why I got inside the octagon.
like to fight.
I like to fight. I like to. Well. I say that,
the difference
but it still
between us.
scares the hell out of me. You know what I mean? Like going out there competing, going there. I mean, at times I told my wife, I'm like, the day before the fight, nerves are wrecked up. I'm like, I can't even fucking drink a sip of water without.
By the way,
dry
I
heat,
hope everybody's listening to this. Because for me, you have to understand. We have to take a minute because I never see that on you. I never see.
And what do
it
I
never
always
seems-
every fight? When
you
we're
say-
in Oklahoma, we're watching the fights. Before every fighter, Brian would go, he looks nervous. And I told Brian, would you please quit saying that?
They're all
Everyone's
everybody-
nervous.
We're all nervous.
Every guy, certain guys are better at acting
Yeah.
than the other ones.
But see, it's
Every
by the time
single
but see,
person-
it's so
and I'm-
important to dilate on that because we have so many young people that listen who are stagnant in their lives. Look, man. I know you're afraid to try something. That's always going to be the case.
Yes.
You're always going to be nervous when you first walk into the gym or you first get on stage to try to do stand-up or you decide to be a writer or whatever the fuck it is. There's no excuse to stay in your life if it's boring.
Well, if you're not
you.
nervous, what the fuck are you doing?
Thank you. If your goals don't scare you, they're not big enough.
But Frank, for
God,
you,
we're
like
so- We're so deep.
But like I look at the heavyweight division, and I'm usually quick to tell a guy, especially with my background and brain trauma and stuff like that. I'm quick to say that guy should probably retire. I don't feel like that with you. And I look at the heavyweight division, everyone's pretty fucking old. Like, and no disrespect, but you look at all the guys like Andre Arlovsky had a resurgence. You have Verdum. People forget Verdum was cut from the UFC. He was not doing well for a while there. Everyone, Ben Rothwell,
he's come back.
All these, Josh Barnett. You got all these guys who are they're all older. So it's not like now if the top 10 was all young
25-year-old.
That's like fuck, man. I don't know, brother.
Yeah.
But really, look at it. Me and Rogan were breaking it down on the podcast together. I went, look at the heavyweight division, man. Everyone's kind of old. Everyone's pretty famous. Everyone's really famous.
Yeah.
Might as well just keep on keeping on, man.
I see. That's what I'm looking at too. And now just going back and just, there's things that you need to improve upon. And that's the thing too. Like I still feel like I make mistakes, and it makes me angry. I mean, after how many fights I have, I go back and go, man, this camp, for the last 5 camps, I haven't fixed this. Why won't I fix it? And the same thing why, and I think it's relatable. And that's why, like, I try to use, the podcast to talk to people and explain, just like what you're saying right now. People, take advantage of your dreams, drive forward, take risks. You're always going to be afraid. And the same thing too is like when people sit there and it's like, man, I'm not, I'm just as human as the next guy. I still screw up. I'm still, don't, sleep in on a morning when I should get out of bed. And I'm like, oh man, I'm just going to, the wife's like, hey, I'm going to the gym. I have to drop the kids off. Hey, babe, I'll be there later, and then so I have to go back and then I look at it and go, okay, what can I do to set myself up for success? Like it's constantly a battle, and it's not 100%. A battle that I've ever winning. It's constantly just going back and forth and go, okay, this is, I don't like how this is. I want to improve here. How can I do that? So, and that's another thing too that fighting gives me. It's like I get to go out there. Even now, like I feel comfortable now with my boxing. My wrestling's as good as it's probably ever going to be. My affinity for that. But then now watching the EBI thing, I'm sitting there going, man, I need to get back to doing jiu-jitsu again. Hardcore like I was. Where I feel comfortable in a fight just jumping guard.
You know what I wish you would have done? And I said this on I wish you would have jumped guard. If I was you and I had your jiu-jitsu bottom game, I would have literally just went out there and dove straight to my butt and pulled Mark on top of me.
But you had to try your boxing because you've been boxing.
Well, no, actually, then it was the game plan was to box a little bit and go for takedowns. But my takedowns are what they are. They're not that I'm okay at it. On a high school level, I guess. But as far as I'm never going to be I would never have been a collegiate All-American. Just my brain for whatever reason. I think people too. You have to become more in tune with your
skill set.
Yeah, and who you are as a person is who you are as you fight. Right. Your personality is your skills.
Correct.
So striking now the different motions. Like I've picked up well, right? And then, but as far as like the wrestling grinding, it's like, well, I don't even have that kind of personality. I'm very deceptive as far as like how I deal with issues. I look at things like, okay, we got to get at that house. I'm like, all right, we're gonna go through the front door. I'm like, no, why?
Yeah,
that's why. Why don't we light the guy's car on fire? And when he comes out to check it, you guys be over in the bush and you start shooting him, and then we'll come through the back door and get the rest of them. And that's why jiu-jitsu just works for my brain. That whole, we're moving and throwing. It's not so much that I'm thinking why I'm going, but I've trained myself so many times. I have different setups. Like, okay, if I pull here and I feel you pull, I know that leads to this. You know what I mean? Like, okay, and then when the energy comes back this way, I know that's going to lead to this. Yeah. And so that's why we're flowing with movements.
I think in the UFC community, fight community in general, don't even look at the forums, or social media. As soon as someone loses, they're only as good as their last fight.
Oh yeah,
like it's over. Oh, why? Because Mark Hunt clipped him behind the air. Anyone in the world line a 300-pound gorilla up? If Mark Hunt clips you behind the air, the fight is over.
Yeah, man. Of course.
Yeah, I made the mistake of not ducking, coming all the way up. I went there.
One mistake,
man,
with that guy.
Fucking caught me in the back of the ear and I wasn't out as far as where I was.
Your head was up.
Oh yeah, like you see me fall down, I even try to protect myself. Yeah. Like I'm like, okay, let me start getting my feet up. Like here it comes, but I couldn't. I was so discombobulated. Oh yeah, like I didn't know which way was up, which way was down.
Good stoppage.
In fact, I actually was even staring at the ref for a second. I looked over at him, like, okay, is that Mark? No, you know what I mean? And like, like
it was a good stoppage because especially if you want to fight more,
Yeah, no, because at that
you don't
point,
want Mark Hunt coming down.
Yeah, if Mark would have sat there and now just teed off on me.
That's not fun for
anybody. I'd had a little bit more damage and maybe hurt the ability. Now don't know my kid's high school graduation.
Yeah.
So no, I had no problem.
What'd you guys say to each other? You seemed like you guys.
Yeah, no. After his fight, he was like, hey man, it's how it is. Some days it's you, sometimes
he
it's
knows
me.
how it goes. Look at his record. He knows this.
Especially with
you
heavyweights, it can go either
way.
way.
Hey, I caught you, man. Could have went either
way. Two legends, really. I consider Mark Hunt a legend.
Yeah,
two of the nicest guys too.
No, yeah, it's super nice.
Anything else, Ev?
That's a wrap on currents.
That's it. Nice, man.
Let's do a little current event. I mean, I want to do a dropping knowledge.
Do a little current event. You got a dropping knowledge, B?
Yeah, I got a good one. I think Frank.
Don't worry, Frank. We got this and fan questions. You're out of here, my man.
I'm reading an amazing book, and I was reading. It's called The Secret of Our Success by Joseph Henrich. If you guys, I'm going to start recommending books because a lot of guys ask me what it is, but. This is just kind of cracks me up about the strength of a chimpanzee.
We were cracking up on the plane.
We were laughing so hard. So there, from the 1940s to the 1970s, there was a traveling circus called Noel's Ark Gorilla Show, and they'd say the sign read "Wanted athletic men to earn $5 per second." $5 per second by holding 85-pound apes' shoulders to the floor. So obviously, beefy linebackers, wrestlers, everybody would line up to do this. Now, in essentially in 30 years, in over 30 years, not one man lasted more than 5 seconds pinning down a juvenile
5 seconds is actually pretty impressive.
Exactly. And moreover, the chimpanzee had to be seriously handicapped. They wore Silence of the Lambs masks to prevent them from using their preferred weapon, their large canine teeth. And later, the apes were forced to wear large gloves because a chimp named Snooky rammed his thumbs up an opponent's nose and tore the man's nostrils apart. So, yeah, so that's an 85-pound chimp. They were thinking about using a 150-pound chimp, and the problem was this chimp expert said, well, now you're risking having a man's back broken or arm ripped off. They can actually pull your arm off. I would like, however, to see either Brendan Schaub or Frank Mir.
It doesn't matter.
I want to see if you guys could hold it. You
Not
guys,
a chance.
two expert
both of us?
wrestlers. No, just expert jiu-jitsu
Are you
guys.
using leverage, you mean?
I'd like to see if you could hold a chimp
chimps
down.
If I could
I
take
don't
his back,
know.
maybe do this. Okay, go.
I was gonna say.
until he goes for them eyeballs.
Yeah, that's a scary
Yeah.
thing too. Have you seen that?
They got the long
It might have
fingers.
been a year or two. That one guy got attacked at the zoo or something. The chimps. He went into the enclosure, jumped the fence or something, and they
Tore 'em up.
reading up. Yeah, but guess what they go for? On
Balls and your face.
Yes, they do.
They go for
Oh,
your
no,
genitals.
we're very aware. Yeah, we're terrified.
I'm gonna.
Brian
You
has
say
a
right
bit
now,
on it. It's hilarious.
go in the water with a great white shark or fight a chimp. I'm like,
I'm going with the great white.
Yeah,
Great white, 100%.
I mean, I'm terrified of sharks.
no.
Like, you won't see me. We go to
Yeah.
the beach.
No.
I'm ankle deep water. Like,
Yeah,
you know,
me too,
like,
bro.
I'm terrified.
You know
of
what's so
sharks.
funny? I was going to ask you. I was going to say I'll put money on the fact that Frank Mir is not out there swimming laps in the ocean because it's a wilderness.
Hell
area.
no.
Dude.
I am.
I'm right with you. This guy's a
You
fucking
can't even see
seal.
it coming.
He's a
I
seal.
look like a seal.
He's a seal, and I'm like, dude, you
I
look
can't
like a
swim for-
giant,
save my
tasty
life,
seal,
man.
and you are fish food for a 25-footer. Meanwhile, I'm
Did you see like the
ankle
one
deep.
that, like it was a January or something? They took a picture of it coming out of the water. Like it was like oh, it's like a 20-foot. It was
was
like
nuts.
7
It's
meter.
the biggest thing they've ever seen.
And they're all over here. They are all up in
God,
there.
forget that, man. But yeah, most of that. I mean, that's why guns
Great-
and knives
great
are.
way-
That's the equalizer I need.
Yeah,
between
yeah.
A chimp, though, you're going to rip my dick
Okay.
and face off. Just
The
kill
two
me.
animals,
Right? Just
chimps.
go ahead and just finish the game.
Going for my balls is like, no.
You rip both of those off,
Yep.
face and dick?
Well, you're not.
All
Yeah,
right.
yeah. It's fun. It's not a
Toss,
fun
toss
life.
me into the water. With
Yeah,
the
not a fun life. It's hard to go through life without a.
That's over.
Good news and bad news. Bad news is you got no face. Good news is you got no face and you got no fucking dick. I mean, they pull your dick and you.
I'd rather take the face too. I'm like, hey, take my face, rip my arms up, just leave it.
So
That goes. Like, what's the purpose
Yeah, I
to
agree.
exist anyway?
primatologists will tell you that chimps have a lot of scars on their wrists. And I was like, why? This is in the zoo. And he goes, well, because they solve everything with violence. And the minute they get in a fight, that one goes right for the other guy's balls. He's like, ah! And he goes
What
to bite.
the fuck is
And
wrong with these
they
things?
like, ah! Yep, hey, bro! They cup up, bro. They cup up. So they get a bunch of bites on their wrists. You got to have strong wrists if you're a chimpanzee.
Let's go with some fan questions. What do you got, Evan?
Damn.
The otter,
Bears,
the
bears,
cub.
and chimps.
There's no beard.
You'll have to figure it out.
You're going to have to
Cats
change your
that
Instagram
wanna die.
name.
I guess so. I don't
That'd be a
know.
good
How
way. They go
dare
for it,
you?
just go for the
Big
neck.
Mac.
How
Yeah.
dare you leave it Evan the beard?
I'll give you the week to figure out a new one.
All right, we'll let the fans vote on it.
Yeah, there you go. Have a fan vote or something. All right. First question comes from Open Fire Catering. Does CTE concern you, and what's your source of passion at this point in your career?
That's for Frank, right?
We covered that. We kind of covered it.
Well, and as far as CT, brain trauma, is brain trauma worry you at all as far as how long you're going to keep fighting, or because like you said, we're guinea pigs.
Yeah. No, obviously, I mean, it's something I'm concerned about. You know, the human mind, that's who I am. That's my existence. Without that, my consciousness, that's how I view reality. So, I'm concerned with it, but, I try to do as much as I can to make sure that it doesn't become an issue. And then, it is what it is. I wish I had a better answer than that. I mean, it's
it's probably the right answer.
Yeah, it's like, I mean,
if you're gonna continue fighting, what else are you gonna do?
Yeah, it's like, I have a Harley now.
You still drive a motorcycle.
Yeah.
God damn it.
But I mean, and I try to take as precautions as I can. But no matter what, I can do everything right, and I can be at a stoplight, and somebody just doesn't hit their brakes and smashes me. Guys,
that's unbelievable. You still ride a motorcycle.
Yeah, I like being on a bike. So.
Well, apparently, man, you almost lost your career.
Well, you know what? That I was, a different kind of bike. So I had a Gixxer. Ran around, crotch rockets. Yeah. Now, I cruise, a little road king, you know what I mean? The wife's on the back, usually riding in a group of people, so
That's
it's, obviously, again, percentages. I try to, put the percentage as much in my favor as I can. But
well, if you wanted a hundo, don't ride a motorcycle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Next question.
There are no
They're
Hondas.
really fun.
Brendan, I think we've established there are no Hondas.
There are no Hondas.
There are no Hondas. I'm not mad at the body.
All right, man.
Dude, I'm sorry, but you're
awkward.
tightening up. I thought I was straight this whole time, but
What
I've been
else you
taking your
got,
back in. He's so happy with his back, and is that a size
you're
large? Is that a
happy.
large or is that a me?
That's an XL, man.
You going small? You going small in your
that
shirts,
a
bro?
small?
You going small in your shirts?
You wish.
Look at me in the eye.
Anyways, what do you got, Ev?
All right, next one comes from MJ Ward. Does Frank have anybody left on his list that he wants to fight in the next few years before retirement?
So if Joe Silva called you up right now and was like, hey, Frank, we want you to fight at whatever, UFC 202.
No, I wish I had a more entertaining answer because I like it too when fighters have somebody that they're gunning for, but I really
Who's
don't.
left for you to fight?
Yeah,
though?
and I've fought
Is
pretty much
there
everybody.
anyone?
I mean, for the longest time, I've already scratched that itch. It was, Nogueira because of being over there in Pride. So, I guess Fedor would be the last probably like big check mark on my list to say that I've been in
You know what? That would make sense because he wants to come to the UFC and he would need to fight another established like legend.
Yeah.
So you versus Fedor.
So that would probably
it'd be a
be-
great first fight for.
Yeah,
Fedor,
that would
for
be
sure.
probably
100%.
then I could say that my list is complete.
I'd
say I could. You would go through and go. I haven't missed any of the who's
Just
of
Cain.
the heavyweight. Cain, but Cain's a great fighter. You know what I mean? Yeah, Cain would probably be a good one.
Verdum would be a good one for you.
Oh, I forgot about that.
I
Verdum,
can't believe
'cause
you
it's
guys
just-
never cross paths.
Yeah.
Obviously, you got your careers.
Yeah,
just
we
like-
keep doing
you guys
that.
Miss each other.
When I'm up, he was down, and now that he's up, I was down. You know what I mean? So now, at one
It'd
point,
be a
I'm
fun one.
Yeah,
Verdum.
You're not down. You've had a win streak. You just this one you didn't.
yeah. I got
Here's a question for you. I don't,
Well, you
know,
don't
if
like
this
it
is,
says-
I don't know if this is in fan questions, but you would know better than anyone. Arlovsky versus Overeem, they're fighting soon. What's your take on that?
I think.
Same training camps too. Neither one of them left Greg Jackson.
Well, both guys have the capability of knocking each other out, and they're both quick. I think that Andre is probably the faster of the two. More explosive. But then I think Alistair probably has a more complete, as far as, Alistair is like, okay, knees, elbows, kicks, and I'll do that on the ground. I give Alistair the advantage.
Most people are surprised because they haven't seen Alistair's ground game.
No, he's
a
really
beast.
good. And then as
Dhabi.
far as stopping, I don't think he's, he has a good guillotine as far as submission application, but his ground and pound and stuff, his elbows and stuff, he knows how to stay on top and,
Yeah,
and
look at
crush
him with
people.
Struve, yeah.
Yeah, he's been inside Verdum's guard, been inside my guard. He knows how to,
Wow.
he can fight off. He's good in that position.
Yeah.
So you think it's gonna be a close fight? Whoever
Yeah, I think
just
it's a
brings
close
their
fight,
A-game
but
that night?
both guys, have the capability of, they're both quick and catch somebody. You know what I mean? Like,
a good
both guys
fight.
are known for having granite chins. And so both guys hit extremely hard. So, I've been hit by both of them. Both pack a wallop. So
True that. I've
hit
only
by
been hit
both
by
of 'em.
one. They do hit hard.
Jesus.
What else you got, Ev?
All right, this one's from Estevan316. Why do you think the heavyweight division is mostly made up of older fighters, and why aren't there more young talent at heavyweight?
I just think it takes a long time to develop skills in our mixed martial arts. There's so much of a skill set in going through and doing it. And I don't think that heavyweights have the same camps and training groups that the lighter guys go. If you weigh 170 pounds and you go to the gym right now, you're going to have 30 partners, How many guys you have in the gym your size? There's times I go to the gym and I can have 4 or 5 guys, but if they're not there that day, everybody has families and things, so as far as getting training partners, that is at a lower level in the heavyweight division. And so that I think that means our learning curve, we're not having the same training capabilities that the smaller guys have.
It's a legit point. What else you got, Ev? Let's do 2 more.
All right, let's do...
Can't get over that.
Looking back on your career, is there anything you would have liked to have done differently, business or training related?
Business-wise, you're trying to take advantage of things more. I'm actually a poor businessman. I suck at it. Now Richard, helping me out more, taking advantage of it more. Trying to be more, social media with, making appearances and leveraging what I've developed as far as a name in the octagon and taking advantage of it outside. To help benefit my wife and kids.
Yeah, I think with your mindset and how good you are as an analyst, I just feel like someone's missing the boat. I mean, obviously you're still fighting, but especially as a heavyweight, because they have a lot of smaller guys as the analyst, stuff like that.
Yeah,
heavyweight's gonna see things a lot different, man.
Well, yeah, it's a different style. You know what I mean? It is. But yeah, hopefully, I can get that, gig again and stick to it, as far as doing, analytical work. I like it. I like it too so much because it's my way of able to describe and break things down. And, it keeps me up there on the cage, active on what's going on.
Game, yeah.
Yeah. And then too, also, I remember when I used to commentate for the WEC and, people come up to me, I got one of the best compliments I was always getting on a regular basis was that guys that come up who already were fans. So it's not like I'm telling them anything that they haven't heard.
Yeah.
But they would say, "Hey, man, my mom, or my buddy, or my grandmother, somebody, my wife, couldn't stand watching the sport, and then she listened to you, and now she understands what was going on, and now she's into it. Now she's telling me to come buy tickets and let's go to the fights." And so for me to convert people over and enlighten them on what's going on, that was always a huge.
Here's one for you, Frank. What if, because let's say in some crazy world, Rogan's contract's up in August. The UFC came to you and said, "Hey, man, you can never fight again, but you can replace Rogan."
Ooh, that'd be rough.
Be a tough decision.
It would be, but I mean, at that point too, it'd be like, okay,
let's do percentages here.
I'm a father, and I have to make sometimes. I still make decisions that are not based solely on myself.
Yeah,
I have to make decisions based upon my wife and kids.
Is.
Yeah, I mean, just this weekend I had to fly out to Phoenix. I was out there before I came out here to do EBI, and man, I woke up at 5 a.m, 2 days in a row. I could have sat there and go, man, let me stay home and study for who's going to be on the card and what's going on, do a better job. But then I had to juggle things. So in that spirit of that, the question, I would take it, because then at that point it's like, okay, well, the longevity for me to be able to provide an income for my children.
You can't pass that up.
How do I pass that up? Obviously, kids hopefully get scholarships or whatnot, but if I can set up to help them out, I mean, once you have kids, man, you do take a kind of a secondary role. I mean, obviously primary because it's like, well, I have to, put myself first in certain situations to be a good father. Yep. But other times it's like, well, in this situation, I'm like, picking the fighter would be a really selfish choice at that point.
I get it, man.
Purely for myself. That's what I want. But then, going that route would be, how much would that help out my wife and
Love
kids?
is putting someone else's happiness ahead of your own.
Yeah.
I'm still looking
everybody?
for it.
I'll define shit. I'll wrap shit up.
All right. Last question we got here. What fight do you find yourself thinking about the most, whether you won or lost?
That's an interesting question.
That is interesting.
Oh. Well, I think the second Nogueira fight was actually probably my favorite fight. I guess to answer that way. Well, because I faced adversity in it, and I can sit there, and it's a learning moment that I can show my children, and sit there if they look at it and go, "Dad, why do you like this?" I'm like, "Well, look, started out bad. I got caught. The fat lady was, getting up on stage. She was getting ready to belt one out,
She was going,
yeah. And I was able to overcome and not only get through it, but came through and decisively won the fight, and came through.
Yeah,
Had I just sat there and said, screw it, not my day, I never would have, that year I think I won, the submission of the year at the MMA Awards, comeback. So many things came because I stayed in it and still tried to work my way through. So then the reason why I like that is I can say, hey, look, here's a situation of how life is. So many times, I've been kicked and I've been down, self-inflicted or otherwise, jumping on a bike, but then you just keep moving, keep fighting, looking for ways to go through until they bury you, man. It's not over.
I love that, man. Well, dude, we know
That's
you're
a
busy,
good way to
man.
end it, dude.
Your boy, I mean, we really appreciate you guys coming in, man.
No, I appreciate you guys
you're
having
busy, and you're always welcome here, man.
No, man, that's cool,
we're
man.
both
The next time we
fans.
get some in Vegas, we'll go shooting and do some stuff out there too.
I'm down for that.
Your guys'
Pistol
podcast.
tactics.
Yeah.
They can find your podcast.
Phoneboothfighting.com, right?
Yep.
Well, just Phone Booth Fighting, right? It's on iTunes. Yeah, not .com. Phone Booth Fighting. It's on iTunes.
Yeah, the website.
The podcast on iTunes. You're 50.
49.
Yeah, they can follow me if Frank Mir at the Frank Mir on my Instagram and social media. Richard helps me with that, and now we're starting to do our Snapchat. You guys doing that now?
We need to. I
think we just started this trip, man.
No, we really need to. Kay's been telling us we really
Snapchat
need to.
is the
Snapchat
new Instagram.
It's funny. I'll tell you after air what I said when he first told me about Snapchat. I was like,
check him out. Phone Booth Fighting on iTunes right now. Podcast. These guys are great, man. So we appreciate you guys coming on.
Thanks,
This is the Finally Kid. We're out.